we're giving away a $100 military-grade telescope for free. You just pay the shipping. Stay on the video.
Starting off this countdown, we have the growler bear. The growler bear, or the Pizzly bear, is a cross between a polar bear and a brown grizzly bear. This actually happened naturally in the wild, which is kind of hard to believe. Basically, because of climate change destroying the bears' habitats, they started breeding with each other out of desperation, which is actually pretty sad. It's believed that the first growler bear was discovered in 2006. On April 16, 2006, a hunter named Jim Martell was out hunting when he captured a growler bear. At first, he thought it was just a polar bear, but officials took a look at it and noticed it had strange features. Later, it was determined to be a growler bear. Or Pizzly bear. It's really funny to say. In our 9th spot, we have a zorse. Any guesses as to what this animal is mixed with? Well, it's a mix between a zebra and a horse. Or sometimes a donkey too. Other people refer to them as zebula, or zebrule, or a zebra mule. These animals were created after crossbreeding a male zebra with a female horse. The offspring look more like a horse than a zebra, but they still got the identifying stripes. The first zorse was created during the 19th century by Charles Darwin. Now, they are still around to this day, but they are extremely rare. This is because zorses are infertile or sterile. They can't reproduce on their own. So the only way to get more of these bad boys is to get someone to crossbreed them themselves. Moving on, number 8, we have the jaglion, or jaglion, I don't know. It's a kind of a weird name, not gonna lie, but this animal is a cross between a jaguar and a lion. And these are actually naturally born. The first jaglion was unintentionally bred. It happened when a lion and a jaguar coexisted in the same zoo together. They were raised together and, one thing led to another and boom, baby jaglion. Not gonna lie, these things are beautifully terrifying. They are so unique and cool looking, but also I would never want to come face to face with one. Now, let me share with you a quick little love story between a jaguar named Diablo and a lion named Lola. The two were raised side by side and were inseparable. When Lola got mature, they kept Diablo away from her so that they would never mate. But whenever they were apart, both animals would grow depressed. It got so bad to the point where Lola wouldn't even eat. So they brought them back together, and bada bing bada boom, they had 2 babies together. So cute. Moving on to number 7, we have the human Z. It is so weird and uncomfortable putting this one on the list. But a human Z is a cross between a human and a chimpanzee. Yeah, I already know what you're thinking, but no, not that. Let me explain. Serious attempts have been made throughout the years to cross a chimp with a human. Since we're so similar in a genetic way, people believe that it's possible to do this. Ilya Ivanich Ivanov was the first person to attempt to create a human-chimp hybrid. I believe he started in 1918 and continued these experiences throughout the 1920s. During that time, the Soviet Union was also doing the same experiments. In 2019, rumor has it that a team of researchers from the Salk Institute for Biological Studies in the US successfully completed this. It's kind of creepy, I know. In our 6th spot, we have the Iron Age pig. This is a big, mean old pig, literally. So the Iron Age pig is a cross between a domestic pig and a wild boar. That's just so wrong to me on so many levels. Poor little Miss Piggy. Now, look at this thing. It's huge and looks tough and mean. In fact, they are considered very hostile animals. It's because wild boars are typically more aggressive. That's one of the traits that gets passed along to their offsprings. Now, they get their name because this pig has many characteristics of domesticated animals from the Iron Age period. Hello, there you go, Iron Age pig. It's quite fascinating. These pigs are generally bred in Europe for the sole purpose of selling and eating them. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the green sea slug. As strange as this one is, it's actually really interesting. Honestly though, this has to be the weirdest hybrid on this list. And that's because it's part animal and part plant. Yeah, it's a mix between a sea slug and algae. Yeah, algae. This sea slug was going around eating algae, and eventually the algae became part of its DNA. It's very strange. Soon, green sea slugs were born and contained chlorophyll, just like a plant. In fact, this is the first animal able to make chlorophyll like a plant. They literally can turn solar energy into food. Again, it's quite weird, but also fascinating. In our fourth spot, we have the wholphin, which is really fun and funny to say. So a wholphin is a mix between an Atlantic bottlenose dolphin and a false killer whale. In fact, these are considered very, very rare. The first recorded wholphin was born in 1981 in Tokyo SeaWorld, but sadly, he passed away after 200 days. Now, the first wholphin born in the US was at Sea Life Park in Hawaii in 1985, but she had trouble reproducing. Her baby wholphins sadly passed away. Some say they have seen wholphins out in the wild, but these sightings have never been confirmed. But if you do see one, it's very rare. Coming in at number 3, we have the Enviro pig. Okay, this one, I take it back. This one is probably the weirdest one on this list. Basically, an Enviro pig is an environmentally friendly pig. Basically, pigs' excrements are high in phosphorus. This phosphorus then ends up in lakes and rivers and oceans and can cause a boom of algae. So scientists were like, hey, let's just breed a pig with less toxic waste. And that's what they did. Enviro pigs are pigs with up to 65% less phosphorus in their excrements. This pig was first created in 1999 at the University of Guelph's farm in Canada. This pig had its phytase gene attached to a piece of mouse DNA. Basically, in the end, it made the pig produce an enzyme to help it better digest plant phosphorus, which is a nutrient in its feed. Voila! From there, Enviro pigs were born. In our second spot, we have the Belgian super cow. Now, when they said super cow, they weren't joking, because take a load of this cow. It's monstrous. As many of you guys know, cows are my favorite animal, but this one terrifies me. It's massive. Like, look at its muscles. I'm sorry, but no animal should be as ripped as that. So basically, this super cow was created back in the 1800s when Belgian scientists and farmers mixed native cattle with shorthorn cattle. Then over the time, they would select the biggest and strongest offsprings of each variety and get them to breed together. So on and so on, bam, you got this super cow, which is definitely the biggest and strongest. So maybe let's stop doing that because this cow is soon gonna get too big for its own good and like take over the world or something.
Did you know that you could get $50,000 to over $150,000 of investment capital at 0% interest rates to fund any business or investment that you want? That's right, you can quickly and easily access $50,000 to over $150,000 of free money in less than 30 days to invest in guaranteed businesses and investments, all without having to risk your own cash or credit. And this is even despite all the craziness that's going on in the economy right now. It's true, there's a little known funding hack.
And in our number 1 spot, we have the human-pig hybrid. Yes, this is a real thing. Scientists at the Salk Institute for Biological Sciences in California have created a human-pig hybrid. Now you're probably wondering, why on earth would they do this? Well, they did this in hopes that one day they could grow human organs inside of pigs and other animals instead of waiting for a donor. So in 2017, an embryo was placed in an adult pig for 4 weeks. Then this was taken out and analyzed. And the embryo survived and contained some human cells. Now they're going to figure out if pig embryos can handle enough human cells to create human organs. It's very creepy in my opinion. Starting off this countdown, we have the wholphin. Take a guess at what 2 animals were bred for this one. If you guessed a whale and a dolphin, you're correct. A wholphin is a mix between an Atlantic bottlenose dolphin and a false killer whale. The first recorded wholphin was born in 1981 in Tokyo SeaWorld, but sadly he only lived to around 6 months. Probably a prime example of why they shouldn't exist in the first place. Another wholphin was later born at a Sea Life Park in Hawaii in 1985, but she had trouble reproducing and all her babies sadly passed away. In our 9th spot today, we have the horse human. And this one is going to ruin your day completely. In 2001, a man was caught trying to inject human sperm into a horse. He had done this to about 6 horses until he was caught by police and arrested. Thankfully, none of the horses got pregnant. But ew, imagine if they did? Woo. In our 8th spot, we have the Iron Age pig. Take a look at this porker. He is a chunky guy. The Iron Age pig is a cross between a domestic pig and a wild boar. Now, something about that cross just does not sit right with me. Now, people like breeding these pigs because they can get a lot of meat out of them or just sell them for a lot. But they are considered very hostile animals. This is due to the fact that wild boars are typically more aggressive, and that's a dominant trait that gets passed along to their offspring. Moving on to number 7, we have the infertile pink bollworm. The pink bollworms are invasive pests that lay eggs on cotton balls, and then once they hatch, the larvae eat the seeds and damage the cotton fibers. In 2005, the situation became so bad that scientists were like, okay, we gotta figure out a solution here. So they decided to create sterile pink bollworms. They did this by treating a bunch of moths with radiation. The radiation would damage their reproductive cells, but it wouldn't kill them. That way, when they encountered a normal pink bollworm and the two mated, bam, it would create an infertile pink bollworm. So for 4 years, 2 billion pink bollworm moths that were treated with radiation were released into Arizona's cotton fields. They literally would fly an airplane above the fields and just drop millions of these moths down onto the crops. And it worked. It helps with the bollworm problem. But imagine if their plan didn't work. That could have gone really bad and damaged entire cotton fields. Coming in at number 6, we have the sheep with human livers. In 2007, scientists at the University of Nevada, Reno managed to grow human livers inside of a sheep. They did this by injecting human stem cells from bone marrow into sheep fetuses. Now, they chose sheep as their test subjects because their circulatory system is very similar to ours. In the end, they managed to create livers made with 20% human cells. They are hopeful that one day this can be used to help grow human organs for those in need of a transplant inside these animals. But anything done with animals is highly controversial, especially when it has to do with injecting them with human DNA and stuff. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the cows. I swear, no animal is safe out there, okay? Not even cows. In 2008, British researchers were given the okay to conduct some human-animal experiments. As part of the experiment, they decided to manipulate cow eggs. So they took the nucleus of the cow egg, which has the source of the most DNA, and they replaced it with the nucleus of a human cell to create a growing embryo. They then watched the egg develop and multiply. Scientists could then extract the stem cells from this. They hope that one day they can use the stem cells in disease treatments. Moving on to number 4, we have the Jeep. And I'm not talking about the car Jeep, we're talking G-E-E-P, okay? A mixture between a goat and a sheep. Now, these animals are adorably cute, but sadly, breeding the two can be a very risky game. Very few babies are actually carried to term, and even few manage to survive birth. Those that do often have a bunch of genetic abnormalities, but people still cross them together, which is just sad because you're breeding animals destined for failure, and for what reason? Moving on to number 3, we have the Jaglion. Can you guys guess what this animal is a mix between? It's kind of obvious. It's a mix between a jaguar and a lion. But these animals are actually naturally born, which is wild. Like, I just can't imagine a jaguar and a lion getting it on. So it first started when a lion and a jaguar coexisted in the same zoo together. They were raised together and, well, one thing led to another, bada bing bada boom, mama lion became preggo. I shared this love story in another video, but it's so cute but also sad, but I just want to share it again. So there once was a jaguar named Diablo and a lion named Lola. The two were raised side by side and they were inseparable. When Lola got mature though, they kept Diablo away from her so that they wouldn't mate. But whenever they were apart, both animals got depressed. It got so bad to the point where Lola wouldn't even eat. So they brought them back together and they were happy and eating and thriving again. You can't keep true love apart. And obviously one thing did lead to another and they did end up mating and they had 2 Jaglion babies together. And they all lived happily ever after. Coming in at number 2, we have the goat human. I can't with this one. Okay, I just can't. But this image right here is said to be a picture of a human goat baby. Story goes that in 2016 in Alabama, of all places, a goat gave birth to an odd-looking baby. In fact, its kid looked very human-like. So it's said that this goat was actually the product of a human getting it on with the goat. I know, I know it's disgusting. It's disgusting. I threw up in my mouth a little when I read that, but again, this is just a rumor. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the hybrid lions. Now, this is actually a very sad example of crossbreeding gone wrong. In 2006, nearly 24 crossbred lions in northern India were dying after they developed a mysterious disease. The disease was a result of inbreeding and a weakened gene pool. Basically, they didn't know this, but they kept breeding lions that all had this weakened gene, and nearly 80 lions were affected by this. The lions being born had weak hind legs and had difficulty walking, and they couldn't run at all. They also had failing immune systems and they weren't living too long. But the worst part was that they let these animals suffer. There's a wildlife law in India which prohibits the killing of animals. So basically, they had to just wait for these lions to die a slow, painful death on their own. It's a very tragic case of breeding gone wrong.
Now with the zebroids. When a zebra meets another equine species, such as a horse or a donkey, this happens. Depending on what the zebra gets intimate with, they can produce a zorse or even a zonkey. Just look at these things. They're like so strange looking, but on a genetic level, things get even stranger because the two species crossbred, such as a horse and a zebra, actually have a very different number of chromosomes that make up their genetic code. Now normally this would be a major hurdle when it comes to two different species interbreeding, but when it comes to zebroids, they're just like, screw you, Mother Nature. On a side note, after hearing the word zonkey, I now know what I'm going to call my first child. Excellent. Trotting in at number 9 now, we've got the growler bear. If you just cannot...
Most people have no clue that in 2023, the best way to make money on Amazon is not with physical products. It's Amazon's other company, Audible. Audible pays me $8,000 to $10,000 every single month in passive income, and I'm not the only one. People like Katrina and Carla, Elena, Renee, all making thousands of dollars a month in passive income using the same system.
I do this on a part-time basis, about 5 to 10 hours a week. I earn about $40,000 a year. There's no other job that pays with that little time.
The best part is it's literally a done-for-you system. You're not buying any merchandise, you're not storing any merchandise, you're not shipping any merchandise, and you need zero tech skills to get started in making thousands of dollars a month in passive income from Audible. Now, I wish I could say I'm the genius who discovered this method, but I'm not. I learned everything from the Mickelson twins. I took their free training, the same free training that's linked below, turned around and made my first $100 in 7 days. And you could be next. All you need to do is to click the link and I'll take you to a free workshop where you'll learn the same done-for-you 4-step process that we are using to make thousands of dollars every month in passive income. The reason people are having such amazing results so fast is because hardly anyone knows about this. Look, you could ignore this just because it's an ad, or you can click the link below and find out why this 4-step process is working for so many people and why it can work for you. And just by clicking the link and watching the short training today, you're gonna get 3 bonuses that have not been offered before. So click the link to claim your bonuses and get in on the ground floor of this amazing opportunity for passive income. Look, the most important thing you can do right now is don't waste any more time. Click the link, go through the free training, and learn the 4-step process that is providing financial freedom for so many others. Click the link and I'll see you in the training.
So you want to know where to invest $1,000 right now? Well, forget about stocks, real estate, or cryptocurrency. There is a little known trend taking America by storm right now called digital real estate. And digital real estate
decide which is the coolest bear between a polar and a grizzly bear, well, meet the growler bear, which is a mix between the two. Although the polar bears are found in the Arctic and the grizzly bears in North America, their habitats do sometimes overlap, and when the bears meet, growler bears are born. One possible explanation for this is that global warming is melting the polar bears' icy homes and forcing them south into grizzly bear territory. But now we are on to number 8, which is the beefalo. And now I'm hungry. Unlike a lot of animals on this list, the beefalo is actually fertile, which means they can produce their own offspring. They themselves are the product of crossbreeding domestic cattle, the cows you see out in the field, and American bison. As you can see from the size and shape of these things, they were bred for their meat production, and it turned out their meat tends to be lower in fat and cholesterol than beef and less damaging to rangeland than cattle. I bet their milk is like steroids. But on that note, we're going to talk about the wolf dog, which is our number 7, and I'm going to give you 7 guesses which 2 animals make a wolf dog. I really hope nobody got this one wrong because it is, of course, a canine hybrid of a wolf and a dog. Now, usually the parent that's a dog will be a breed that resembles a wolf, so you're more likely to see a wolf being bred with a German Shepherd than you are with a poodle. That would just be weird. Wolf dogs' appearances can vary wildly, and there is no real way of guessing what they'll look like until they're born, because the traits they inherit from either parent can be extremely random. Now, any pet that has wolf dog heritage at least 4 generations back can be considered a wolf dog, so you guys should check your family tree, and if you see a great grandmother that's a little bit too hairy, maybe you're part wolf dog. But next up, we're going to look at the narluga because that is our number 6. As you might have guessed from the name, these are the product of narwhals and belugas. Now, narwhals might look like a fictional cross between a unicorn and a seal, but they are real, and if they are bred with a beluga whale, they make a narluga. This occurrence is extremely rare though, and the only properly documented example of it happening in the wild was when scientists found one of them on the coast of West Greenland. They can be mainly identified by their massive heads, which has got me thinking that maybe I'm part narluga. It explains a lot. Anyway, we are now halfway through our mashup of the animal kingdom, and we're at number 5, which is the leopard. A leopard is the product of a male leopard and a lioness. The first documented case of this was one that was bred in India in 1910, but they have since been bred in zoos all around the world. Although the crossbreeding of these kind of cats are fascinating to the public, animal welfare groups have criticized the breeding of the leopards. Although they may look really cool, leopards often die as cubs, and if they do make it to adulthood, they have a very painful life with a number of different health problems. So just remember guys, just because something looks cool doesn't necessarily mean it is, like onyx. Onyx sucks. I've been waiting so long for a chance to fit that into a video, but now we're at number 4, and we're looking at camas. If you give a camel from Asia and a llama from South America some private time alone, you will come back months later to find a cama. Well, not quite. They were actually first produced using artificial insemination to create an animal that had the size and strength of a camel, but the more easygoing personality of a llama. Anyone that's ever seen a camel will know they're a bit grumpy. Well, sadly, it didn't go to plan. Camas took after their camel parents and have proved to be very uncooperative with humans. I guess you could really say they've got the hump. Or not, whatever. Let's just move on to our number 3 now, which is Savannah cats. Now, if you want something a bit more exotic than a normal house cat, then maybe the Savannah cat is for you. This is what you get when you mix a wild African cat with an everyday domestic house cat. They gained popularity among breeders in the 1980s, but it wasn't registered as an official breed until 2001. Unlike domestic cats, they are very social creatures. They're also bigger than house cats and can reach 25 pounds in weight. And the best part is that Savannah cats actually use litter boxes when they're domesticated. I might get one just to train my cat. Damn you, Sadie. Time flies when you're crossbreeding, and it's already time to announce our number 2, which is Wolfins. Now, if this list was made purely on names alone, Wolfins would win it for me. But before you guys freak out and are like, wow, no way, this isn't real, whales are way too big. Well, you're technically right, but these whales are called false killer whales. They look a lot like killer whales, but they actually belong to the dolphin family. So when you breed them with a bottlenose dolphin, you get the wolfin, which is exactly half of either parent. Their bottlenose parent has 88 teeth, for example, and their false killer whale parent has 44. The wolfin child will sit right in the middle with 66 teeth. Alright, time for a quick recap of all our weird and wonderful hybrids. We've looked at beefaloes, zebroids, and wolf dogs, but the one hybrid in the world that has captured the public's attention and got people interested in animal hybrids more than any other is our number one, and it's the liger. A liger is born when a male lion breeds with a female tiger. They are the largest living cats on the planet. Lions and tigers have growth inhibitors in their genes which help to control their size and stop them from growing too big. But when they produce a liger together, these growth inhibitors don't seem to be active, which means ligers can reach incredible sizes. Some female ligers can grow to 10 feet in length and weigh more than 700 pounds.
In our number 10 spot, we have the EnviroPigs. Scientists have recently created a new kind of pig. The pig that they created can absorb phosphorus in its body. Why is this important, you may ask? Well, scientists discovered that when pigs poo, I'm classy, really. When pigs poo, they release a large amount of phosphorus into Mother Earth, and that makes her extremely unhappy. And so it became important for scientists to figure out a way to reduce this. Well, they did, and the genetically engineered pig they created absorbs most of the phosphorus in its body. I believe that this creation may be the first step in creating a pig army that could be used to take over the world, as pigs have a lot in common with humans. A pig army is definitely terrifying, and I really hope that's not the result of this. Let's move on. In our number 9 spot, we have the zombie dog. This one kind of makes me sick to talk about, but it has to be done. If you're a dog person, maybe cover your ears. In the 1940s, some Soviet scientists were apparently bored. Yep, bored, and decided to take the head off of a dog and put it on another animal's body. With some blood transfusion and oxygen pumped to the brain, their experiment was actually successful as the dog came back to life, and he even tried to lick his own nose. This experiment arguably poses a danger to the world's sanity, as dogs are the best creatures ever, and it's just horrible that this was done. But apparently the science community has stated that this experiment did show some signs of hope in terms of finding solutions for people who are hemorrhaging blood too rapidly to be saved by conventional means. In our number 8 spot, we have featherless chickens. This one is literally terrifying to look at, but also kind of terrifying if people are going to ingest this in the future. This is a new kind of chicken that scientists created that is featherless. It's fewer calories and higher protein. Sounds like every weightlifter's dream. But don't get too excited about this, because apparently these kinds of chickens are more prone to health conditions and are more likely to have parasites. Lovely. Well, this might be the meat that kills the world then. I hope if they do end up mass producing these kinds of chickens that they put on the label featherless chicken. Then people will have an option if they want to take the risk or not. I'm sure they'll do their best to correct this issue before giving it to humans to eat. But then again, actually I take that back. I don't have that much faith in our food suppliers. People get ill all the time from meat and they just do a mass recall, and that's depression. Guess what? I'm going to therapy.
Okay.
I'm like really excited because I have my first session this afternoon. I'm using BetterHelp, so I get to like stay in my room, and get this, I get to choose from a list of like 25,000 plus licensed therapists. So if I don't click with the first one, I get to switch at any time until I find the one that's right for me.
I don't even understand why you need therapy.
Well, lately I've been worrying like more and more, and I've kind of been feeling on edge. Plus, Trauma and I haven't been getting along lately. It's like I'm above the window and she's below the window.
No, she didn't.
I'm hoping we can meet, you know, like somewhere in the middle.
If it's your cup of tea, YOLO.
Or is it OSAT? One session at a time.
Vision problems? 97.3% of people have no idea this vision health ritual exists. But now, over 110,000 people have learned this weird ritual. Every person has over 105 million cells in their eyes. These cells collect light signals and send them to our brains, which gives us the ability to see. Sadly, As we age, the cells deteriorate, much like a car engine that starts to break down over time. In 2007, scientists from Harvard and Cambridge University worked together, and after years of research, discovered a Nobel Prize-winning way to regenerate them. A weird bedtime ritual that helps people reclaim the 20/20 vision God gave them. This strange routine doesn't require expensive surgeries or irritating eye drops. It can work even if you've had poor eyesight for 3 months, 3 years, or even 3 decades. It's so powerful it gained major coverage on NBC, Fox News, and ABC. All you have to do is tap the button below to discover this unique vision improvement routine in the first few minutes of the presentation. This mind-blowing video is created for anyone worried about their vision. People like 58-year-old Jamie Anderson, who improved her vision in a few weeks, and 69-year-old Susie Morris, who said her eyesight has never been better, and 61-year-old Tom Jones, whose vision improves daily. Now he feels 20 years younger. This ritual has struck fear in the greedy CEOs in the eye care industry as they scramble to protect their mind-numbing profits. So please stop what you're doing and watch this life-changing free presentation now, that in the first few minutes explains how this Nobel-winning ritual can improve eyesight and help you feel decades younger. Tap the button and watch now, before it gets taken down.
That's it. Anyways, buyer beware. In our number 7 spot, we have the new sudden death mosquito. Honorable mention. Okay, so before you go hide under the covers, something I want to do like all the time, just know that the name of these mosquitoes, it's not as scary as it sounds. A mosquito was created to be essentially an anti-disease mosquito. As mosquitoes carrying malaria is a massive problem in African countries, scientists wanted to try to combat this issue and create a mosquito that would kill other mosquitoes, which eventually would extinguish the species in a few years. Of course, the major problem would be that it would completely disrupt the entire ecosystem that they are a part of. The mosquitoes help provide food for fish and birds and so many amphibians and insects, and also in indirect ways for some animals, so it really just wouldn't be good if they were wiped out. Even though, honestly, it would be nice to not be bitten alive every summer. They love my blood. In our number 6 spot, we have the spider silk goat. Okay, the idea of a spider goat existing is probably the most terrifying thing to imagine, and if such a thing did exist that had half spider features and half goat features, I would probably cry. However, in the case of this experiment, that isn't exactly what happened. A creature was created that looked like a goat and had so many regular qualities that would make it a goat, but the one difference is that it actually made spider silk protein in its milk, and it could be spun to make spider silk. This is potentially really great for us, as spider silk can produce such valuable things such as bandages that are superior and bulletproof armor. But yeah, if they ever create a goat with spider features, I think the world would be in extreme danger. At least our ability to stay sane would be at risk, for sure. In our number 5 spot, we have the human pig. The human pig. Yeah, I bet some of you haven't heard of this one, and I mean, it doesn't exist anymore, but it did for 28 days before scientists shut down the experiment, so yeah. An experiment was done to create a human-animal hybrid by injecting human stem cells into a female pig. As I said, it was for 28 days, but that's 1/3 of a pig's pregnancy, so the fetus was sufficiently developed before it all got shut down. They were not ready or prepared to deal with the unpredictable outcome if the human animal went to term, and they just kept it alive enough to understand how the cells interact with each other. Can you imagine a pig with a human brain alive and roaming free in this world? No, I can't. That would definitely be so dangerous, especially if it had pig instincts. Some pigs eat their babies. Enough said. In our number 4 spot, we have the glowfish. Glowfish are not necessarily a danger to us human beings, but most likely a danger to themselves. Let me explain. The glowfish are fish that have been created as a result of gene splicing, and yes, they glow in the dark. Pretty awesome. However, not so much for them. Why? Well, if they're released into the wild, then they will be extremely vulnerable, as predators will be able to easily spot them because, well, they glow. and they will be gobbled up easily. Even though there are already fish out there that naturally glow, so they already have to deal with this problem, what is the point of creating a new fish that will also be gobbled up? I don't know. In our number 3 spot, we have Rupee. Rupee is a genetically engineered clone dog that is extremely cute. So cute. The world's first cloned beagle, to be exact. He's one of 5 beagles that were produced by a Korean scientist by the name of Byung-Chung Lee. He was cloned by using a viral transfection of fibroblast cells with a protein that allows him to glow red in the dark. Yes, like the devil, because they are demon dogs. Okay, fine. This cloned species doesn't seem to threaten the world, but it will threaten all of those out there that get bothered by fluorescent light. Okay, this was just a scientifically created species that I wanted to give an honorable mention to because they are so cute. But seriously though, this is a big step forward for scientists working to cure human diseases, as these dogs are the first modified genes cloned successfully. So really, this creation could be the beginning of curing the world instead of endangering it. In our number 2 spot, we have fast-growing salmon. Scientists at Aqua Bounty created a genetically modified salmon that grows extremely fast. This new kind of salmon has the same odor, color, texture, and flavor of standard salmon, but it is able to grow twice as fast because of a growth hormone that stays activated throughout the entire year. But some believe that this could be dangerous to eat, and as of yet, we are unsure as to how safe it is. The FDA have not approved this kind of salmon just quite yet, so perhaps it's better to stay clear until the green light is given. Could be dangerous to the world. In our number 1 spot, we have the landmine detecting plant species. Yes, you heard me correctly. Scientists have genetically engineered a plant that can help us detect where landmines are in the world. You might not realize how big of a problem this is, but it is estimated that about 70 people die per day because of unknown landmines that were placed in different areas around the world during the previous wars. I actually know someone personally whose brother died because of a landmine explosion, which is pretty insane. So the fact that a group of scientists have created a plant that could help detect them is so awesome. When it's near nitrogen dioxide, an ingredient known in explosives, the plant turns red. That will show us where the landmines are so that they can be removed more safely or even just avoided. The landmines are a danger to the world, and this plant could actually be life-saving. So this spot might be the reverse of the title of this video, but this kick-ass new plant species needed an honorable mention.
Number 10, a wolfin. A wolfin is part whale, part dolphin. The existence of wolfins have been a legend for centuries. Known in fisherman lore as the Great Gray Beast, they come from the mating of a female bottlenose dolphin with a male false killer whale. Now, a false killer whale, by the way, is not actually a whale. Both these animals come from the oceanic dolphin family with the toothed whale suborder. Wolfins are one of the rarest hybrid animals. Citizen wolfin sightings in the wild are common, but concrete evidence still eludes scientists. Currently, we can only reliably see these animal hybrids in captivity. Wolfins are an extremely interesting balance of their parents as well. Their skin is a dark gray, the perfect blend of light gray dolphin skin and black false killer whale skin. They also have 66 teeth, which is the precise average of a dolphin's 88 teeth and the false killer whale's 44 teeth. To me, these look weird and they kind of make me uncomfortable. Number 9. Wolf dog. A wolf dog, also called a wolf dog hybrid or wolf hybrid, is a candid hybrids resulting from the mating of a wolf and a dog. The term wolf dog is preferred by most of the animal's proponents and breeders because the domestic dog recently was taxonomically recategorized as a subspecies of wolf. The American Veterinary Medical Association and the United States Department of Agriculture refers to the animals as wolf dog hybrids. Rescue organizations consider any dog with wolf heritage within the last 5 generations to be a wolf dog, including some established wolf dog wolfdog breeds. In 1998, USDA estimated an approximate population of 300,000 wolfdogs in the United States, the highest of any country worldwide, with some other sources giving a population possibly as high as 500,000. In the first generation of hybrids, gray wolves are most often crossed with wolf-like dogs such as German Shepherds, Siberian Huskies, and Alaskan Mammutes for an appearance most appealing to owners desiring to own an exotic pet. Because wolf dogs are generic mixtures between wolves and dogs, their physical and behavior characteristics cannot be predicted with any certainty. Number 8. Zebroid. A hybrid between a zebra and any other member of the equine family is one of the most common in the animal kingdom. In most cases, the sire is a zebra stallion, the mother could be anyone. Known collectively as zebroid, the name of the breed depends on who the mother is. A fowl could be a zorse, zebrel, zonkey, zebunky, or a zoni. Zebra hybrids usually have the appearance of whichever animal they have been crossbred with, while still retaining the striped coat of a pure zebra. Now, most of these animals don't have fully striped coats. Instead, the stripes are usually found on just the legs or non-white areas of the body, depending on the genetics of the non-zebra parent. When it comes to zonkies, donkeys are closely related to zebras, and both animals belong to the horse family. These zebra-donkey hybrids are very rare. In South Africa, they occur where zebras and donkeys are found in proximity to each other. Today, various zebroids are bred as riding and draft animals and as curiosities in circuses and smaller zoos. Number 7. Growler bear. Known variously as a Pizzly bear, a growler bear is a grizzly and polar bear hybrid that is a rare hybrid within the Ursidae family. Tales of such creatures were told within the First Nation communities of North America down the centuries. But it wasn't until DNA samples were taken from a strange-looking bear found near Sash Harbor in the Canadian Arctic in 2006 that their existence was finally confirmed. Growler bears are interesting because, generally speaking, polar bears and grizzlies have a mutual contempt for one another and will rarely coexist in captivity or in their natural habitats. However, extreme situations and human interventions have produced more of these adorably shaggy caramel-colored hybrid bears. They typically grow to be slightly smaller than polar bears, averaging 60 inches tall at the shoulder and around 1,000 pounds, but they're better to be able to survive in warm climates thanks to their grizzly bear genes. Number 6. Jag lion. A jag lion, sometimes referred to as a jaguan, is one of the many portmanteaus used to define hybrid species of animals. In this case, it is a blend of two cats, a lion, and a jaguar. Both belong to the genus Panthera. Their genetics aren't too far off. It's not surprising that they're able to mate, but they are extremely rare. A jag lion is the offspring of a female lion, lioness, and a male jaguar. To date, there haven't been any matings of a male lion and a female jaguar, so that hybrid doesn't have its own special name. Now, spots are definitely a dominant gene, and any speckled big cat is sure to pass them on to their offspring. And like its mother, the jag lion cub has a distinct tuft of hair at the end of its tail. It wasn't until the 21st century that this crossbreed became known to the world. Before this century, there hadn't been any record of such a cross being made, despite experiments in crossbreeding lions, leopards, and tigers. They are rare. And how rare is extremely rare? Well, right now there are only 2 jag lions in the world. They live in Canada and they were bred unintentionally and are in captivity. There has been no written record of any other crossbreeding between lions and jaguars. Number 5. The Iron Age pig. The Iron Age pig is a hybrid between a wild boar and a domestic Tamworth pig meant to recreate the type of pig represented by prehistoric works of the Iron Age in ancient Europe. A project to create them under the name Iron Age pig started in the early 1980s. In many areas, a variable of mixtures of these hybrids and feral pigs of all domesticated original stock have become invasive species. Their status as pest animals has reached crisis proportions in Australia, parts of Brazil, and parts of the United States, and the animals are often freely hunted in hopes of eradicating them or at least reducing them to a controllable population. When bred intentionally, the hybrids are intended to visually recreate the backbreed look of pigs represented in the prehistoric artworks of the Iron Age and in early ancient Egypt. Now, generally, they are only raised in Europe for a specialty meat market, and in keeping with their heritage, are generally more aggressive and harder to handle than pure domestic pigs. Number 4. Beefalo. Beefalo constitute a hybrid offspring of domestic cattle, usually a male in managed breeding programs, and the American bison, usually a female in managed breeding programs. Accidental crosses were noticed as long ago as 1749 in the southern states of North America during British colonization. Cattle and bison were first intentionally crossbred during the mid-19th century. In 1983, the three main Beefalo registration groups reorganized under the American Beefalo World Registry. Until November 2008, there were two Beefalo associations, the American Beefalo World Registry and American Beefalo International. These organizations joined to form American Beefalo Association Incorporated, which currently operates as the registering body for Beefalo in the United States. Now, the breed was created to combine the characteristics of both animals for beef production. A recent USDA study showed Beefalo meat, like bison meat, actually tended to be lower in fat and cholesterol. They are also thought to produce less damage to the rangeland than cattle. Personally, I just think saying Beefalo is fun. You should try it. Number 3. Green sea slug. Possibly the most unusual hybrid animal on this list is the green sea slug. It's a sea slug that incorporates genetic material from the algae it eats into its own DNA. So it's part sea slug, part algae. The strange result is a plant-animal hybrid that can consume food like an animal or create its own nutrients via photosynthesis. Scientists call these sea slugs emerald green alcia. Their ability to turn solar energy into food is what gives them their brilliant green hue. Scientists acknowledge that they'll have to do more research in order to determine how this phenomenon happens, but as of now, this is their only successful instance of gene transfer from one type of complex organism to another. This creature can be found along the east coast of the United States, including the states of Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Rhode Island, Florida, and Texas. They can also be found as far north as Nova Scotia, Canada, and are most commonly found in salt marshes, tidal marshes, pools, and shallow creeks. Number 2. Hybrid crocodile. The only known hybrid crocodile in the world is named Yai. Yai's parents are a saltwater crocodile and a Siamese crocodile. The crossbreeding happened only because its parents were kept together in a zoo. It wouldn't have occurred in the wild as these two types of crocodiles have different habitats. Yai is huge. And in the year 2000, Guinness World Records said he was the world's largest crocodile held in captivity at 19 feet and 8 inches, which is as tall as a giraffe. He also weighed 2,645 pounds, which is almost the amount of 2 cows. Since then, Yai has grown even more and is now 21 feet long. He's located at the Samtapakran Crocodile Farm and Zoo in Thailand. I hope I said that right. All I gotta say is I'm glad he's in captivity. I can't imagine how I would react if I saw him out in the wild. And coming in at number 1, the super cow. The super cow, also known as a Belgian blue cow, is a breed of beef cattle from Belgium. The Belgium's blue's extremely lean, hyper-sculpted, ultra-muscular physique is termed double muscling. The double muscling phenotype is a heritable condition resulting in an increased number of muscle fibers instead of the normal enlargement of individual muscle fibers. This particular trait is shared with another breed of cattle known as Piedmontese. Both of these breeds have an increased ability to convert feed into lean muscle, which causes these particular breeds' meat to have a reduced fat content and reduced tenderness. The Belgian blue is named after its typically blue-gray mottled hair, however, its actual color can vary from white to black. The Belgian blue has been exported to many parts of the world. It is reported by DATIS by 24 countries in Africa, the Americas, Europe, and Oceania. Of these, 10 report population data. In 2022, the world population was estimated to be around 107,875. Now, double-muscled cows routinely experience dystocia difficulty in parturition, even when bred to normal beef bulls or dairy bulls because of a narrower birth canal. The birth weight and width of the calf also may be higher than in animals without the double muscling gene. People also think it's unfair to breed these animals because of their difficulty walking due to the muscles and how big they are. These cows are absolutely jacked, and I would not want to run into one of them or get in a fight with it.
The Royal Mint's Britannia bullion coin has redefined bullion security. Featuring unmatched anti-counterfeiting technology, Britannia is the most visually secure bullion coin across the world. When investing in your future, it's important to have an investment you can trust. Stack securely with the Royal Mint's Britannia range today and help secure your financial future.
Afraid to open email attachments or make payments online because of cyber threats? Your computer runs slow and it keeps crashing when you have the most important work to do? If you haven't given System Mechanic a serious look, you're missing out on one of the most popular PC optimization tools available. If you aren't all that tech savvy with Windows PCs, feel free to skip this video. However, if you're ready to help your family experience faster startups, snappier performance, with fewer headaches and complaints, keep watching. Hi, I'm with Iolo, an American software company founded over 20 years ago with one purpose: to make PCs faster.
Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot, we have the centaur. This is one of the most famous hybrid creatures of all time, the infamous horseman of Greek legends. It isn't quite clear exactly how this legend originated, but there is a really interesting theory, which I love. Basically, some people believe that perhaps the idea for this creature came about when the people of the Minoan culture, who are said to have possibly at the time been unfamiliar with horses, they ran into a tribe of horse riders. The skill these people had in riding horses, along with how being able to traverse on horse would of course change the way that the Minoan people lived, basically just inspired them to create these tales of the horse-human hybrid creature. This seems like a very possible origin for the legend, but regardless of where it came from, the legend stuck around into Roman times, where it was then highly debated whether or not these creatures actually may exist. Clearly, however, this legend would go on to endure long past the days of ancient Rome, considering the fact that the tales of the centaur still exist today. In our number 9 spot today, we have the echidna. The echidna is a half-woman, half-snake creature that first became well known through Greek mythology. In the legends, she is described as being half-beautiful maiden and half-fearsome snake. In fact, Hesiod described her as an irresistible monster who is like neither mortal men nor the undying gods. Instead, she was, quote, half a nymph with glancing eyes and fair cheeks, and half again a huge snake, great and awful with speckled skin, and she, quote, dies not nor grows old all her days. Echidna is the partner to Typhon, who is a terrifying snake man, and the two are said to have created the most horrendous children. The first child was Orthrus, who was a two-headed dog who guarded the cattle of Geryon. The second child was Cerberus, who was a dog with more than two heads who guarded the gates of Hades. And finally, their third child was the Lernaean Hydra, a serpent with many heads who had the ability to regrow any if they were to get cut off. This is all to say that Echidna had quite a terrifying story to her, and it's interesting because some scholars believe that the tales of dragons in medieval Europe were actually based in part on Echidna. In our number 8 spot today, we have the mandrake. If you're a Harry Potter fan, you might be familiar with mandrakes, and they are particularly interesting because they are one of the few examples that represent a human hybrid that is a mix between human and plant. The mandrake plant is a very real group of plants in the genus Mandragora, and they are usually found in the Mediterranean. It is believed that the tales of the mandrake come from the fact that often the roots of the mandrake have such a strange appearance, they sort of look like human faces. This likely would have been enough to fuel the legends, but things do not end here. The thing is that this plant has some hallucinogenic properties, so that, combined with the weird face-looking roots, and you have the perfect recipe for quite a legend. It's funny to think that this story probably started out because someone was on a bit of a trip. In the legends, when the plant is dug up from the ground, it will release a horrible scream that has the ability to kill anyone who hears it. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Sphinx. The Sphinx is of course commonly associated with ancient Egypt, and it is the creature that is depicted with the head of a human, the body of a large cat, and the wings of an eagle. Like I said, this image is often associated with ancient Egypt due to the famous monument that can be visited in Giza still today. But this isn't the only place the Sphinx is seen in legends. In Greek tradition, the Sphinx plays the role of a merciless woman who will kill and eat anyone who cannot answer her riddle, as seen in the tragedy of Oedipus. When we take it over to Egypt, the Sphinx is often seen with the head of a man and was seen as a benevolent creature with incredible strength. The legends and imagery of the Sphinx have long endured the years since these ancient empires and continue today, and have even expanded into different cultures. In our number 6 spot today, we have sirens. These creatures originated from the tales of ancient Greece, and in these stories, sirens were creatures with the head and upper body of a human woman, but with the legs and tails of a bird. These creatures were alluring and exceptionally dangerous, mostly to sailors. The siren would sing a beautiful song from the rocky shores, which were said to hide dangerous reefs below the water. Using her songs, she would lure sailors to this treacherous area, likely to meet their demise. The siren is an important character in the legend of Odysseus as he returned from Troy in the epic. In the legend, he had to tie himself to the mast of his ship in order to resist the temptations and the lure. The tales of the siren have lasted for years and were still quite prevalent when they made a reappearance in the writings of 17th century Jesuit priests, who believed that these creatures were in fact real. Today we still use the word siren and the term siren song to describe things or ideas that are exceptionally intriguing and alluring. Throughout the years, the descriptions of the siren have gone on to become a bit more mermaid-like than bird-like as they originated, which does bring me to my next point. In our number 5 spot today, we have mermaids. Mermaids are one of the most famous creatures in our modern mythology that came all the way from ancient Assyria. These creatures with the upper body of a human and the lower body of a fish, all from the goddess Atargatis, who transformed herself into a mermaid after she was ashamed of herself for accidentally killing her partner. A tragic story that spurred the tales of mermaids for centuries to come. Since these legends, mermaids have appeared in stories all over the world, and often people regard them as less than fictional. Christopher Columbus swore he saw real mermaids on his voyage to the New World, but then again it's becoming abundantly clear that he had no idea what he was looking at for a lot of that journey. Some places and cultures have slightly varying versions of the mermaid, like the Selkie, which is an Irish and Scottish version of a mermaid who is half seal and half woman. Of course, this creature went on to inspire many famous stories, including the Disney smash hit, The Little Mermaid.
Imagine a car that goes as far as it does fast, as sleek as it is spacious, as smart as it is beautiful. Introducing Lucid Air. Experience the best.
This new veneer is bringing smiles back to millions for less than $30. So you can have the radiant smile you deserve, without any gross molds or in-office visits. You can even eat with them on, just don't bite into any candy apples. Other than that, they can do everything a set of crowns can do at 1% of the cost. That's why Dr. Calvin invented this product in the first place. During lockdown, millions of patients skipped dentist visits, drank plenty of coffee and wine, and returned with stained and yellow-looking teeth. For those with insurance and $20,000 to spare, he could fix anyone's smile. But for the majority that didn't, there was no affordable alternative. So he teamed up with a local university and set out to create a solution. 1 year and hundreds of prototypes later, the product was completed. He named it Swift Smile, a revolutionary alternative to expensive braces, crowns, and other cosmetic dental procedures. Its patented design allows it to gently grasp your molars so one size fits all and you don't need to spend hours taking molds or see a dentist. It works on all types of teeth, from those needing major cosmetic help to those that just want a slightly whiter and brighter smile. At first, he relied exclusively on word of mouth. It wasn't until it leaked on TikTok that Swift Smile racked up a waitlist of 200,000 orders in just a few weeks. Dentists, hygienists, and bloggers have already made the switch. As a mother of 3, Diana had a lot on her plate. She was always a bit self-conscious about her smile, but didn't have the time or money to fix it, and didn't want unsightly braces. She saw Swift Smile on TV and was blown away.
In our number 4 spot today, we have a harpy. Harpies are a character seen in Greek and Roman stories, and in those they are described as a bird, but with the head of a woman. And at first I thought that sounds kind of nice and cute, but when we take it back to some of the earliest mentions of harpy, like by the poet Ovid, we see them described as human vultures, which sounds significantly more terrifying than what I was imagining. In fact, harpies are quite often described as horrifying, disgusting creatures, with descriptions that only get more grim as time goes on. Initially, it seems as though harpies were seen as the personification of storm winds, and throughout the legends we see that they would often steal food from their victims as they were trying to eat, and also they would be responsible for carrying those who had done evil things to the Erinyes, who were the female deities of vengeance. When a person suddenly disappeared off the earth, it is thought to have been the work of the harpies. They were the agents of punishment who were known to be cruel, vicious, and pretty violent as well. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Gorgons. It is possible that you may not be familiar with the term Gorgon, but it is very likely that you know one of them. The descriptions of the Gorgons do vary slightly, but they commonly refer to 3 sisters: Stheno, Uriel, and Medusa. These sisters were mostly human, except for the fact that their hair was made up of slithering, slimy snakes. The earliest examples of the Gorgons comes from the Greek mythology, in which the Gorgon-like creature had scales and claws, but no serpent hair. When the tales of the 3 sisters came into play, so did the stories of how they had horrifying faces that, should anyone gaze upon them, they would immediately be turned into stone. In the legends, 2 of the sisters are immortal, but the most famous of the trio, Medusa, was not. This led to her being slain by the demigod Perseus, but not so much could be said for the other 2. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Minotaur. This creature was first seen in Greek legends and later Roman, and basically it is a creature that is part bull, part man. The name of this creature comes from the bull god Minos, who was a major deity in ancient times. The Minotaur is said to have been created as Minos competed with his brothers as ruler. During this time, Minos prayed to Poseidon, the sea god, to send him a snow-white bull as a sign of the god's favor. Minos was meant to sacrifice the bull in order to honor Poseidon, but he was entranced by the bull's beauty and decided to keep him, thinking that the god would accept a different sacrifice in place of the bull. Of course, Poseidon was not pumped about this decision, so he needed to punish Minos. He did this by making Minos' wife fall in love with the bull, and one thing led to another, and there was some very unnatural offspring. In the end, the Minotaur was born, but there was no natural food source for this creature, so instead it began to devour human flesh to appease its appetite. The creature is depicted as having the head and tail of a bull with the body of a man. While the most famous appearance of the Minotaur was in the Greek story of Theseus, who actually fought the Minotaur in the labyrinth, the legend of this creature has long prevailed and is seen in many stories still today, including Dungeons and Dragons, and some would even argue that the Beast in Beauty and the Beast is a creature modeled after the Minotaur. In our number 1 spot today, we have the Satyr. We're not just talking about Mr. Tumnus, we're taking it all the way back to the Greek stories of the creature who is half man and half goat. These creatures started out in legends as a male nature spirit with ears and a tail resembling those of a horse, but throughout the years they became more human-like and less beast-like before they began to gain these more goat-like characteristics. It is thought that perhaps the depiction of the goat-human hybrid comes from them sort of melding with the character Pan. Either way, these creatures are often depicted as being comically hideous, and they also have quite a few lewd descriptions that I can't exactly detail here on YouTube. Let's just say it is very obvious that they're always a little excited. This fits perfectly with the fact that these creatures are often known to love things like wine, music, dancing, and definitely women. Satyrs were companions to the god Dionysus and are believed to live in places like woodlands or the mountains or even in pastures. They are very motivated by sexual desires and are even known to do some pretty horrendous things in pursuit of these desires. Although these characters are quite ridiculous in a multitude of ways, they are also thought to possess a lot of really useful knowledge, but they need to be persuaded into sharing it. How human. That's the most human-like characteristic that these guys have.
Starting off this countdown, we have the rat pigs. The Salk Institute for Biological Studies in the US has been known to run a number of crossbreeding experiments. One was performed on rats and pigs. The team of scientists decided to take stem cells from rats and inject them into pig blastocysts. However, this failed, and I mean, I'm not surprised. Rats and pigs have different gestation times, and genetically they are very different. But imagine a pig that looked like a rat. Okay, that is terrifying. In our 9th spot, we had the human Z attempts. In 1967, scientists in China were working on creating a human-chimp mix. Sadly, not much information about these experiments have been disclosed to the public. But rumor has it that the experiments didn't really work. They wanted to basically create a chimp that could talk fluently in whatever language it was taught. Then in 1981, they tried this experiment again. They impregnated a female chimpanzee with human sperm. Turns out, the chimp did manage to get pregnant by it, but sadly passed away 3 months later due to complications. Coming in at number 8, we have the rat mouse. Scientists at the Salk Institute have found a way to grow the pancreatic tissue of a mouse inside of a rat. The mouse pancreas was able to grow inside of rats successfully. So they grew these new pancreases from mouse stem cells that were then placed in the bodies of the rats. And then when the pancreases were complete, they transplanted them back into the mice. Now the biggest thing about this experiment is that this technique could reverse diabetes in the mice. So they hope that one day they can grow organs inside the bodies of different animals, and then you transplant those organs into humans to cure diabetes. Of course, there's still so much work to be done on this. The last thing they want is to grow a human organ inside of an animal and then have the recipient's body reject it. In our 7th spot, we have the killer bees. Did you know that killer bees were accidentally created by scientists? If they're out here creating bees that threaten the ecosystem, then who's to say they won't create animals that do the same? Basically, this all started in the 1950s. A biologist was commissioned by the Brazilian government to create a species of bees that would increase honey production. But along the way, things went wrong. The biologist himself didn't have much experience with animal breeding. In the end, bees from southern Africa and local Brazilian honeybees mated, and it produced these angry killer bees. And then of course, thousands of these bees just accidentally escaped. Now they get their name because when pissed off, they have been known to chase people down for more than a quarter mile. And on top of that, their stings are very painful. These bees are also aggressive towards other bees as well. So it puts them at risk, and now we're kinda just stuck with them. In our 6th spot today, we have the human mouse. In the late 90s, 3 doctors started doing experiments to try and create human body parts in a lab. One of these experiments involved growing a human ear on the back of a mouse. So they did this by creating an ear-shaped scaffolding and putting cells of cartilage from a cow on it. They then put the mouse under anesthetic and placed this ear under its skin.
Call your cable company and cancel your subscription. This new groundbreaking discovery gives you access to your favorite channels and movies for free. And greedy cable companies are trying their hardest to make it illegal in the USA. The gadget provides more channels than regular cable companies with HD image. By using state-of-the-art chip technology to catch satellite TV signals, it unlocks content on all major media platforms, all without ever having to pay for expensive contracts or monthly subscriptions. Making traditional cable providers a thing of the past and setup takes less than a minute. Just plug it in, and it works. The signal quality is perfect both in urban areas and in the countryside. It's called TV Boost, and was developed by an ex-cable operator employee from California who turned the TV industry upside down and saved Americans hundreds of dollars in the process. After spending years working as a technician for a local cable operator, Kevin learned that in 2010, Congress passed a new law that stops cable companies from scrambling their TV signals. Yet no existing technology grants free access to these premium TV channels. And ever since that rule came into effect, the price of cable TV has risen by roughly 5.8% each year, which is almost 3 times the rate of inflation. That's when Kevin realized cable television is a complete ripoff and decided to do something about it. Blessed with years of technical experience and a desire to give back to the community, he cracked the encryption codes cable operators use to encode TV signals and developed a unique plug-and-play device that unlocks every channel in crisp HD. Investors flocked to see what he'd created once word got out, and his friends told him that he would go down in history. But when a cable provider offered him $2.5 million for the rights, Kevin declined the offer and got fired from his job 3 days later. It was then that he realized the impact his invention could have. A group of talented engineers joined him in his war against greedy cable providers. They perfected the device and readied it for mass production. It's the best and most cost-effective way to turn your regular TV into a supercharged home entertainment system. The device unlocks thousands of movies, sports, TV shows, live news, and more. All you need to do is plug it into your TV, and it saves the average household up to $2,000 yearly. TV Boost has already shipped over 1 million units since its release, but cable providers are trying to sue it into oblivion. They've already banned it from stores across the US, forcing Kevin to sell it exclusively online. Now they're trying to take that away too, and it looks like they'll succeed. As a parting gift, Kevin is selling TV Boost at a 50% discount before it gets banned everywhere. But this has sent demand through the roof. If you want to save big on cable TV for life, click the link below to buy TV Boost from the official website. The founders of TV Boost are so confident in their product that they are offering a 30-day money-back guarantee with no questions asked. But you have to hurry up. With inflation at an all-time high, more orders are coming in fast. So click on the link in this video to get yours with a 50% discount.
Crazily enough, the mouse's body fed the cow cartilage cells. The scaffolding dissolved and the mouse grew this artificial shape of a human ear. But it was only the outside of an ear. Okay, it didn't work, there was no eardrum. Now you might be wondering why they did this. Well, their hope is that this will help plastic surgeons when reconstructing human ears for their patients. So they would create this ear on the mouse and then graft it onto the person. So you'd have an ear that is part mouse, part cow. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the goat with human milk. I swear I didn't make this up, it's real and I'm a little disturbed. But basically, scientists have figured a way for goats to produce human breast milk. They did this by transferring human breast milk enzymes and proteins into goat embryos. In the end, they found that the milk the goats were producing wasn't 100% human, but it contained 60% of the lysosome and lactoferrin found in human milk. Now, why do they want goats producing human breast milk? Well, it could feed and save babies in need. Plus, it would have a longer shelf life. Would you try this milk? Let me know in the comments below. I've heard breast milk is pretty sweet, but I don't think I want to try it. Coming in at number 4, we have the Belgian super cow. Now, you guys know how much I love cows. And if you didn't know, then hi, my name is Lindsay and I love cows. But this thing is terrifying. It's monstrous, okay? It's super ripped and it's just massive. The Belgian super cows were created back in the 1800s when Belgian scientists and farmers mixed native cattle with shorthorn cattle. Then over the time, they would select the biggest and strongest offsprings of each variety and then breed them together. So on and so on, bam! You got a super cow, which is definitely the biggest and strongest, and I understand why they call it the super cow. Like, just look at this beast, okay? It could crush anyone. In our 3rd spot, we have the Enviro pig. So pig waste is actually pretty toxic. I mean, if you've seen the Simpsons movie, then you'd know all about it. I mean, that was a bit of an exaggeration, but still. Anyways, pig's waste contains really high levels of phosphorus. This phosphorus ends up in lakes and rivers and oceans and can cause a boom of algae. So scientists were trying to come up with a way for pigs to have less toxic waste, hence the creation of the Enviro pig. Enviro pigs are pigs with up to 65% less phosphorus in their excrements. This pig was first created in 1999 at the University of Guelph's farm in Canada. This pig had its phytase gene attached to a piece of mouse DNA. Now, it's really complicated to explain, but here's an explanation, and I quote, "The genetically altered pig was created using genetic material from a mouse and an E. coli bacterium to reduce phosphorus in the pig's feces. In the end, it made the pig excrete fewer pollutants." Moving on to number 2, we have the pig with human blood. Now, you're probably noticing a trend by now. Pigs and mice are the scientists' test subjects of choice. Researchers at Mayo Clinic in Minnesota have managed to create pigs made out of human blood. So the pigs have human blood pumping through their veins. Not only that, but some of the cells in the blood merge together to create pig-human cell hybrids. Now, the reason behind this all is to allow scientists to study how viral infections can transfer from animals to humans. And in our number 1 spot today, we have Oliver the chimp. In the 1970s, there was a performing chimpanzee that received a lot of attention. His name was Oliver. Now, Oliver was really different from other chimps for a number of reasons. The main being that Oliver might have been a successful mix between a human and a chimp. Yeah, you heard me. A lot of doctors and scientists are convinced that Oliver was a human Z. It's believed that they inseminated a female chimp with male sperm, and Oliver was the offspring. Now let's take a look at the facts. Oliver didn't look like other chimps. In fact, he had a more human-like appearance. He had a flatter face than other chimpanzees, and he walked on 2 feet. instead of all fours. He also preferred human females over female chimpanzees, and he understood humans very well. So could it be that Oliver was actually half human, half chimp?
Starting off our list at number 10, new bees. Great. Sick of the old ones that sting you in the neck and then you're allergic? We got some new bees now to worry about. Here we go. A lot of us know bees are pretty harmless and kind of cute, hairy little pollinators. Unless, of course, like I mentioned, you're allergic or terrified of them. But truthfully, bees normally do a lot more good than harm, obviously, right? Save the bees. That was, of course, until an experiment in the 70s went south. Yeah, this experiment resulted in a new bee, just a dangerous bee. The idea was to take a regular honeybee and breed it with a bee that is found in Africa that produces more honey. And of course the goal was to produce a manageable bee that would also be able to provide more honey than a regular honeybee. Good stuff, right? On paper this sounds like a step in the right direction. Well, the bees that came out were a lot less manageable and they didn't even make more honey. Yeah, liars. You're fired, all 1,000 of you. Get out of here. After this experiment ended, however, the bees got out into the environment, and in the 80s we saw the beginning of a massive trouble. These bees are not only aggressive towards other kind of bees, which creates a huge problem, but they're also very aggressive towards human beings. Nice. And when these guys sting, their stinger stays with them, so they can continue to Julius Caesar you how many times they want. The victims of these swarms receive 10 times the amount of stings as regular swarms, so horrible, horrible news. And they react to disturbances 10 times faster, and they will also chase said disturbance a quarter of a mile. So hope you can run really fast and really far. Number 9, wholphin. These guys were created when a female common bottlenose dolphin was bred with a male false killer whale. Yeah, we shouldn't be doing this. They're extremely rare and they have been found in the wild, but unfortunately most of the ones that have existed were bred in captivity, because humans are the worst. The first recorded wholphin was born in the Tokyo SeaWorld in 1981, and he very sadly died just 200 days later. Didn't even make it 1 year. Horrible. Probably a prime example of why they maybe shouldn't exist in the first place. I don't know, just a wild observation. The first that was born in the United States that actually somehow survived was at Sea Life Park in Hawaii in May 1985, and her name was Kekamalu. She ended up having 3 babies. The first passed away after a few days, the second passed away at the age of 9, but thankfully the third one is still alive. In March last year, both Kekamalu and her daughter were still alive, but they remain, of course, in captivity. So it's like, great, but not, really not at the same time. Number 8, farm cattle. Back in the 90s, farmers in India were told that if they crossbred their cattle, they'd be able to breed cattle that could produce more milk, which in turn would mean more money for them and their families. Awesome, this should be amazing and great news, right? Well, considering why we're here watching, I don't think it's gonna end the way we think, no. Different breeds of bulls were brought in and farmers were expecting great results, but they ended up being stuck with cattle that did produce more milk, great, but they also needed way more food. They needed high quality food as well, or else they'd stop producing more milk and they were less resistant to the local diseases, so they required more veterinary visits. So it cost them more money, you know what I mean? Yeah, we got more milk, but we have to spend more money on maintaining the damn thing. It's not a win. It's not a win in my book. Number 7, old Buffalo Jones. Here we go. A guy named Charles Buffalo Jones. Let's talk about him. This man started breeding animals in 1906 because the bison population in Arizona at the time was exceptionally low. So bison were bred with domestic cattle in order to produce a hardy commercial animal. Nice. Old Buffalo Jones getting his science on. He ended up just giving up on this and released the animals, who were then managed by the state, and the numbers remained relatively low because of limited hunting licenses. Well, when the beefalo, good name, found their way into a national park where hunting is banned and therefore aren't any, natural predators, the population began to grow by 50% a year. That's a lot of beefalo. So none of this is necessarily bad, but it's the animal's environmental impact that has the real trouble. First off, they're very thirsty animals and they can consume 10 gallons each per trip to a watering hole. So they're sucking it all up, you know what I mean? It's like when you're in school and you're waiting for water and the guy in front of you just keeps drinking. You're like, oh my God, what are you doing? Where is this going? Not to mention the fact that they do their dirty business in the water and that basically just ruins it all. Basically, they've thrown the entire ecosystem off balance and have pushed out other animals, and insects and plant life around have also been infected, all because they're thirsty and they like to take big
If you want to be healthier, you've got to get cassava.
I started cassava a month ago because I was eating poorly and I knew I could do better.
I'm really conscious about my nutrition, and cassava makes my life so much easier.
I love how I get all these great superfoods that would be impossible to gather myself.
Cassava is my secret for staying healthy.
It really helps control my craving, so I don't eat junk anymore.
It's the perfect meal replacement. You don't want to make regrettable food choices when you're doing so well.
I use Kachava once a day for breakfast or lunch, and I feel great.
I've tried every shake out there, and Kachava is hands down the best.
I highly recommend Kachava if you're a busy parent.
To my family, my friends,
and colleagues.
It's really so convenient, but tastes good at the same time.
Click the link and start today.
If you had a choice, would you rather pay $12 for this cheese grater on Amazon or pay less than $2 on Alibaba for the exact same thing? Well, believe it or not, over 16,000 people paid $12 for this product on Amazon last month. And it's making this person selling this product on Amazon over $200,000 in sales per month. Shocking, right? But here's what you don't know. It's not just the cheese grater that's overpriced. Almost every single product sold on Amazon is sold at 5 to 10 times the price you can get it from a supplier. And their boring everyday products like this ice cube mold on Amazon is selling at 8 times the cost of buying from a supplier. And one seller is making more than $67,000 in revenue per month from it. And this water bottle on Amazon is selling at 13 times the cost of buying from a supplier. And one seller is making more than $240,000 in revenue per month from it. But why do thousands of people willingly pay more on Amazon for the exact same product? Well, they simply don't know about it. Most of us are taught to be consumers and to buy based on convenience. But if you know where to look, it's not that hard to find these big price gaps like you just saw and become a seller on Amazon. It costs you only $49.
Where we all drink our water. Thanks, Beefalo. Number 6, hybrid lion. Back in the 1980s at the Chatbir Zoo in Chandigarh, India, they started an experimental program where they would breed together a domestic lion, which is a bit smaller, has a less shaggy mane. They would breed that with an African lion in the hopes that they could be introduced to the wild and help with the dwindling population of wild lions in India. Again, sounds like a great plan at first. How do we make it happen without making weird animals? The zoo found 2 African lions that were being used in a circus and then brought them in to breed with their other 2 Asiatic lions. Nice. Hey, we'll save ya. Just kidding, even worse. When the cubs were born, it was clear this was already a mistake, as the cubs all had severely weak back legs. They were all shaky. They were having extreme trouble walking, and as they got older, their immune system started to fail more and more. Sadly, by 2000, they had bred more than 70 of these hybrid lions, and they finally decided to stop the program, and all the males were given vasectomies in order to stop any reproduction further. There's also laws that prohibited them from killing animals, so they were simply just waiting around for them to die naturally. It's kind of a weird circle we got into. When there's a dwindling population of lions, it's insane to me that they just wasted 20 years trying to do this when they could have just simply bred the lions that they had. You know what I mean? It was right there, and they're like, all right, now let's try something new. It's like, what? No, why? Number 5, Kunga. Perhaps the earliest example of human-animal hybrid testing. Here we go, halfway through. Time to turn it up a bit. Scientists recently learned about this donkey hybrid that roamed ancient Mesopotamia. Now, this was a time before even horses arrived, so they had to do something, right? Large kungas would pull wagons, and smaller ones would help pulling plows. These little guys, they were the talk of the town. Imagine hybrid animals before horses. No wonder they were a status symbol. 4,000 years ago, they were given as gifts for weddings. Yeah, yummy. I wonder what this one is. It smells a little stinky. After so long, scientists are finally able to figure out what exactly a kunga was a hybrid of. It was a female donkey and a male Syrian wild ass. Yeah, just a wild ass over there. Hey, nice wild ass. It's wild what you can still learn from ancient animal bones from even thousands of years ago. It's mind-blowing. More amazing how involved this hybrid was in Mesopotamian culture. Do we bring back the kunga? I don't know. Number 4, super cow. Moo, but with a lot of O's. Just tons of a moo, just a mighty moo. Introducing the super cow. All right, start your day off with some super milk, and then have a super stomach ache, and shit your super pants. Only in Belgium, let's do it. Back in the 1800s, scientists and farmers brought together native cattle and short-horn cattle. After that, they would literally pick the biggest of the bunch and then have them breed together. These cows are officially called Belgian Blues, but I will continue to call them super cows. Thank you very much. I can't even look at these guys. They're disturbing. They look like bodybuilders. That makes no sense. They have like 8 biceps. The Incredible Hulk, just with more milk. Number 3, The mouse with an ear on its back. Oh, I want to Q-tip this guy every time I see him. The mouse with a human ear, folks. How did this happen? This is like the world's greatest mouse spy. Stuart Little's evil brother. Let's do it. Back in 1997, this Vacanti mouse became the test subject to determine if scientists could grow cartilage using chondrocytes, aka cells from a cow. And clearly it worked. A little too well. It's a little odd what we have. We're still talking about it, obviously. It's weird. It all started when Joseph Vacanti, a pediatric surgeon, began designing human organs. This was during a shortage in time. He wasn't just bored and started to make ears. He was changing the medical game. And little did he know, he was about to change the science game as well. He constructed an ear, and he told his brother Chuck and his partner Bob to not bring up the fact that he attached said ear to a live mouse. Kind of hard to bring up, but we'll do our best. Okay. Chuck failed. He spilled the beans almost right away. But now we know that cow cartilage can create human cells. That's great. I want to Q-tip his back. Is that weird? That's not weird. Gives ear cheese a whole new meaning. I'm gonna throw out. Number 2, the zorse. I'll give you a second to figure out what animal this is. Nice, there you go. Male zebra, female horse. Now we've got a really fun word. Zebroids are also quite common historically. Charles Darwin even noted some in his work. So since the 19th century, crossbreeding zebras with horses and donkeys, it's all been done. More often than not, and this is what makes them stand out, zebroids will experience dwarfism. It's pretty cute. In 2010, a zedonk was born, a zebra donkey. All these fun names, right? But again, back in the 70s, 3 were born in Colchester Zoo. These zookeepers were like, how do we make zoos new and hip and bizarre? Oh, I know. Humans are not great. Humans are too bored, it seems. And finally, number 1, Hiromitsu Nakauchi, stem cell biologist from Tokyo. This last one is too wild. Just recently, his experiments have been approved by the government, so things are actively in play here. Not old Farmer Joe in the early 1900s. No, we're getting to modern science now. Hiromitsu hopes to grow human cells inside mice and rats, right? Like we just talked about. But then he wants to transplant those embryos into surrogate animals. A lot of animals, a lot of cells, a lot of traffic going in and out. Cells into rats and mice embryos, how do we even get here? We went from Salem witch trials to rodents being genetically manipulated so they can make pancreases for you. What? But his hope here was that the rodents' bodies will be used for human cells to then make a pancreas for themselves. So it's kind of like a kickoff into biology, right? Here's the thing, while conducting said experiments, they found out that rats were starting to develop a human-type brain. Yeah, that's when they decided to pull the plug, rightfully so. The second humans and animals get too close, governments come in and they go, hey, stop. Thanks.
This semester, I invite you to study with us, where I'll be helping pre-dental student Ari succeed in her organic chemistry class. We'll cover commonly seen organic chemistry 1 topics like resonance, ranking acidity, stereochemistry, mechanisms, and all the reactions.
Starting off the countdown, we have Dora the Witch. Now, what can explain the fact that Dora has talking inanimate objects? Well, it may just be because it's a kid's show, or maybe it's because she's actually a witch that can conjure up spells. That one's far more interesting. Now, one of the spells is placed on the backpack and the map so that they can help her along the way. In fact, she's trying to recruit children into witchhood as well. She needs the children's help in order to conjure the spells by chanting along with her. That's why she has those chants, like chanting backpack, backpack to receive the item that she needs. Now, it is said that she also has placed a spell on Swiper. The spell is Swiper, no swiping. When she says that, Swiper will fail to take the item. If he does succeed to take the item, then he always will have to throw it away. So this spell ensures that Swiper can never truly steal anything. Coming in at number 9, we have Dora suffers from dementia. Dora, more like dementia. So, Dora is said to suffer from extreme short-term memory loss, kind of like Drew Barrymore in the movie 50 First Dates. She's stuck doing the same things every day, and to her it feels new, but the audience can see the daily repetition of her life. And she's constantly going to be stuck acting and thinking like a child, even when she ages. Now, throughout the episodes, Dora will ask the audience for help and then pause for an uncomfortable amount of time just staring into your soul. In fact, there are no audiences in her world. She is just talking to herself. And that's how long it takes her brain to process new information. Coming in next at number 8, we have Boots is a trapped child. Now, if the previously mentioned theory is correct and Dora is a witch, then people believe that Boots is actually a child that she is trapped and turned into a monkey-type creature. Kind of like how Yzma turned Cusco into a llama in Emperor's New Groove. So, first off, Boots can talk. And secondly, he literally wears boots. If he was a real monkey with opposable type thumbs on his feet, then wearing boots would be extremely uncomfortable. That means that this child is a monkey but still has some of his human features. That's why he can talk and walk normally. Boots is then stuck being Dora's assistant for eternity. Moving on to number 7, we have Dora is in a coma. People believe that Dora is actually in a coma and is imagining everything that is shown in the show. But how did this happen? Well, people theorize that Dora was home alone one day when robbers decided to break into her house. As a result, she ended up getting attacked by these robbers and ended up in a coma. In fact, Swiper is actually a reference to one of the robbers that attacked her. That's why Swiper is always around Dora and stealing items, because her last memory was of her attacker. So now Dora is living in a dreamlike world until she wakes up from her coma. People theorize that she never will be able to, until her parents pull the plug. In our 6th spot, we have Swiper is a human. Now, people believe that Swiper was actually a man who then got turned into a fox. So this theory surrounds the idea that Swiper was once a poor peasant. He wasn't the nicest man, and as a result for his bad behavior, Dora punished him by turning him into a fox. Now, why would Swiper constantly want to steal items but not keep them? Because he just always throws them away right after. Seems like a complete waste of time. Well, what if Dora's backpack holds the potion to turn Swiper back into a human? Now, that would make sense to why he's always following Dora around. He's just waiting for the opportunity to sneak into her backpack and get the potion. He may steal those other items to distract Dora until he has a chance to get what he truly wants. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the cursed backpack. Now, Dora's backpack looks completely harmless. It's literally a bag with a face on it that sings. But turns out the backpack has a darker agenda. So people are convinced that Dora's backpack is actually cursed. They say that it's some sort of enchanted artifact, maybe even cursed by an old spirit. Like, it has the ability to summon a variety of different objects just from a little backpack. Either that or it has the extension charm from Harry Potter cast on it. But anyways, this bag always supplies Dora with a variety of items. Some are useful, while others are said to just be a distraction. The bag is constantly testing Dora's worthiness. If she chooses the wrong item in a bad situation, then Dora could end up dying. But honestly, I think that this is pretty funny. Like in one of the episodes, Backpack asks which item is good to put on Boots' scraped knee, and then they give you options like rope, a band-aid, an umbrella, scissors. Like, yeah, just I'm gonna take the umbrella and put it on the cut, and it's kind of funny. In our 4th spot, we have the theory that Dora has schizophrenia. Dora spends her days roaming around, going on adventures that she is completely making up. But she's convinced that everything she sees is all real. This includes a blue bull, a light purple and yellow monkey, and a giant red chicken. Ever notice why the animals are all unusually colored? Well, it's because Dora is delusional. She imagines that her town is a rainforest and that she can talk to animals and inanimate objects. In fact, Boots is said to be one of her doctors. He follows Dora around observing her behavior and makes sure that she doesn't get into any trouble. But Dora imagines Boots as a monkey that wears boots. Dora is also never seen going to school. Well, that's because her case of schizophrenia is so severe that she can't go to school. Moving on at number 3, we have Dora is suffering from a terminal illness. Poor Dora, apparently she hasn't got a lot more time to live. So this theory revolves around the idea that Dora is very sick and her adventures are all in her imagination. So Dora is said to be so sick that she isn't allowed to leave her house. She suffers from an illness that causes a child to be born with a big head, which explains why Dora's head is unusually large. Now, as a result of her sickness, she isn't allowed to leave her home. The adventures that she goes on are just the stories that she makes up from playing with her toys. Her toys are a stuffed animal fox and a monkey and the doll that she considers herself. She wishes that she can be adventurous and brave, so she just created this doll as someone who she wants to be. Now, she made her stuffed animal fox the personification of her illness, because her illness is literally swiping away years of her life. In our second spot, we have Dora is an undercover spy. Hard to believe that this little 8-year-old girl could be a spy, but there are a lot of reasons why people believe it. So people believe that this show takes place in the 1960s. This was during the Cold War when there was the whole Cuban Missile Crisis. Now, people believe that Dora is assigned to find out information on the nuclear missiles in Cuba. Dora, as in D-O-R-A, is said to stand for Designated Operative Recon Agent. Now, Dora is always seen on specific established paths. She never actually explores unknown locations. That's because she already knows where she needs to go. And her talking map? Well, it's a reference to her GPS that is guiding her where to go. And then we have the monkey Boots. Well, Boots is a reference to the military term boots on the ground. It refers to the individuals who are currently fighting in a war zone. Nice try, Dora, but we figured out your true identity.
Transgender. It's made very, very cool through the media, through TikTok, through Reddit.
And in our number one spot, we have Demon Swiper. So, of course, one of the most well-known characters is Swiper the Fox. Every episode, he gives Dora a hard time, steals her items, and then throws them away. And of course, you have the famous line, "Swiper, no swiping." Now, people have a theory that Swiper is actually a demon. They believe that he is an evil spirit in a form of a fox that's goal is to cause chaos on Earth. In fact, people have made the connection between Swiper and the story of Life of Lioba by Rodolphe Folda. In this story, a nun loses the church key and feels guilty for being negligent. However, the head nun believes that it was stolen by a Swiper demon. Eventually, they find a dead fox at the church door with the key in his mouth. They say that Satan had transformed himself into a fox and had stolen the keys. They ended up defeating him by praying. Okay, so who else do we know that is a fox that steals? Swiper. That means the phrase, "Swiper no swiping," is a command that repels Swiper so he can't steal. Therefore, Swiper is a demon.
Number 10, West Cutting. It's almost as if they wanted fans of the film to like hunt them down and like host a barbecue outside in the parking lot. In both Toy Story 2 and 3, their old address of 1001 West Cutting is tucked away where you'd least expect it. In Toy Story 2, there's an ad for Al's Toy Barn and the address is 1001 West Cutting, and then in Toy Story 3, there was a sign above Andy's door that says the same thing. We get it! We know where you live now, except they have since moved to Emeryville, and we know that because they have a reference to that in other films like Cars. I wonder if the studio has ever worried about people figuring this out and storming the castle to show their love. I'm pretty sure they'd welcome it. They'd be like, "Ah, cool, you found us. Here's the golden ticket. We're gonna put you in the next film." That'd be cute. Number 9, AI spiders. Animation in itself is like a painstaking process. Having to draw intricate lines, layers of animation with subtle changes is a tedious process. Pixar didn't want to add any more stress to the team by having to create intricate little cobwebs in the corners of one of their scenes. But what they did to solve the problem is kind of terrifying. Technical director Hoseok Chang created AI spiders that were designed to weave the webs just like real spiders. All the animators had to do was tell the spiders where they wanted the webs to be, and off they'd scatter. Without the spiders, it would have taken animators several months to create the webs because they'd have to do one strand at a time. So whenever you watch the film, keep an eye out for cobwebs and remember that they were created by real computer spiders. Does that make it kind of terrifying? Yes. Incredible? Absolutely. Number 8, the new Buzz. The amount of thought that goes into every Pixar film is one of the biggest reasons as to why the Toy Story series is just that good. They don't miss a thing. When Woody is first introduced to Buzz in the first movie, by way of the angle we know that Woody isn't exactly buzzed to see a new toy join the group. After all, that is the whole point of the first movie. So Pixar knew this shot would be important later when they introduced Buzz to a newer version of his toy self. Buzz then goes on to personify the internal battle of what we all endure within ourselves, against the person we want to be and the person we are. Can we be better? Or is the battle simply about realizing that we, with our peeling labels and scuffed plastic armor, have always been enough? Number 7, Clue. This next one is scary brilliant. This is honestly going to change the way I watch Pixar films going forward. I've never seen this one, so this one was so fun to hear about. Seriously, like I was sitting in my chair and guffawed when I saw this. During this scene, in Toy Story 2, when Ham is laying out the mission for tracking down Woody, he is standing on one of the best Easter eggs ever. Of course, Ham uses the board game Clue to discuss a detective mission that will put these toys to the test. Imagine being in the writer's room for that. They must have had an entire team dedicated to coming up with iconic Easter eggs. I'm speechless. This is perfect. If you're curious and you have Disney Plus or you have the movie, the timestamp is 18 minutes and 31 seconds, and you'll see it. Brilliant. Number 6, what happened to Sid? For anyone who was around when the first Toy Story came out, Toy Story 3 was an emotional journey, to say the least. It was supposed to be the last film, and believe me when I say there wasn't a dry eye in the audience. And then of course they made a 4th movie, so it was a little like anticlimactic. Kind of. But I'm sure I wasn't the only one who was wondering what happened to Sid? Well, when the toys were accidentally tossed into the trash pile, Sid nearly becomes the terrifying antagonist again. He is indeed the garbage man! You can tell due to the nostalgic skull t-shirt he wore in the first film, he's wearing it again while he's like dancing out to beats while he's doing his job, having a great time. I'm glad he found success. Good for you, Sid, doing some good for your community. But looks like he just can't help nearly ruining the lives of these toys. Glad he never got away with it though. Number 5, Foreboding Future. Another really popular film in the Pixar realm is WALL-E, about a robot left behind after we humans destroyed the world. It's also a really cute love story and it makes my heart go, Despite WALL-E being adorable, it also depicts a terrifying image of our future. This next Easter egg hints at a darker future for our lovable Toy Story world. The batteries that fuel our beloved Buzz Lightyear are the same brand, the By and Large Corporation, which is the same company that created WALL-E. BNL created WALL-E to clean up planet Earth, and they also created the same batteries that fuel Buzz. It's a terrifying thought that among the trash WALL-E cleans up is one of our beloved toys, forever without a home. Number 4, so many Andys. I honestly didn't think this one was true until I went back and watched it, and yeah, it's pretty terrifying. When the kids are arriving for Andy's birthday in the first movie, about 10 minutes in, you can't tell which one's Andy because they're all Andy. Every single one of them is Andy except for the one kid by the staircase in the blue hat. The rest of the kids are all like carbon copies of Andy. Short buzz cut hair, round-headed ball caps. Andy is the one with the Woody hat. But I guess in an effort to save some time, they decided to press copy-paste and save time on editing. Is this some kind of nod to the fact that some kids just look the same when they are that age, or was it just a way to save time? Don't believe me? Time for a rewatch and check the scene at 10 minutes in. Number 3, Always Alive. The reason I think Toy Story is so successful is that as kids, toys are some of our best friends and we give them life. Whether during an hour playing Barbie or in 10 minutes before bedtime, they were alive to us. In the Toy Story films, the toys are sentient beings, meaning that while we look away, they move, feel, think just like we do. But when we play with them, they're just that, toys. That was the kind of rule the film established. But during the film, viewers noticed a subtle breach in Woody. In one scene while Andy's playing with Woody, there are unexplained adjustments in his facial expressions, and we aren't sure why, which viewers found a little disturbing. Number 2, The Shining. One of the studio's core directors is Lee Unkrich, who has been involved with many of Pixar's heavy hitters including Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, and Toy Story. He also happens to be a massive fan of The Shining, directed by Stanley Kubrick. He's even made a website dedicated to it, so it should be no surprise that he added in a few Easter eggs to pay respect to his favorite film. The most famous Easter egg is the carpet in Sid's house, which mirrors the carpet featured in the hallway of the film. I just watched The Shining for the first time this past winter, okay? There's lots of movies to catch up on. And I was extremely creeped out by Danny's imaginary friend, Mr. Tony. Well, Lee finally brought Mr. Tony to life, sort of, by making the janitor at Sunnyside Daycare Mr. Tony. And last but not least, if you are still with us, guys, make sure to give us a like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know what you think so far, and drop in any hints of what you've seen in the past watching Toy Story. Let us know. Number 1, Lost Story. Did you know Toy Story 2 almost didn't happen because it got deleted? About a year before the final release of the film, they were looking back at the file directory, saw 40 files one second and then 4 the next. All hearts stopped in the office that day as 90% of their work was deleted and they didn't have a backup at the studio. Luckily, one of their employees was working from home after they had just given birth, so she had copies at home of the film so she could work. This blockbusting mistake was a result of a faulty code which they referenced in the film itself. RMRF was the code that caused the mass destruction of Toy Story 2, and they set it as the license plate on the car that takes away Bo Peep in Toy Story 4. So that was kind of confusing, but you get what I mean.
Starting off this countdown, we have the Lost episode. Now, there are tons of apparent Lost episodes out there. You got the creepy ones from SpongeBob and Mickey Mouse, and now Paw Patrol. So according to the narrator, one night they were staying up late to watch Nick at Night. But around 2 in the morning, Nick announced that coming up next was a new episode of Paw Patrol, which he thought was weird because why would they release a new episode at 2 a.m. when all the kids are sleeping? Anyways, as the episode began to play, he noticed something very strange about it. The episode began with the pups all depressed. Turns out Ryder had died and they were at his funeral, after which the pups got placed in foster homes. But before Sky and Zuma even made it there, they took their own lives. They rather die than be in foster care. Eventually, by the end of the episode, all the pups were dead. They had hung themselves with nooses. The episode ended with this saying, "Life is death and death is life. We all cherish life no matter the cost." Ain't that creepy? In our 9th spot today, we have the dark side of Chase. Now here's another apparent lost episode from Paw Patrol. This time, the episode started off fairly normal. That was until Chase decided to take a walk in the woods. While out for his walk, someone ran up to him and stabbed him with a needle. Upon being injected with this mystery serum, his eyes turned red and his teeth and claws grew sharp. That's when the horror started. Chase returned home only to kill all of the pups in sight. One after another, he slaughtered his friends until he was surrounded in a pool of their own blood. Dun dun dun! In our 8th spot today, we have the CIA experiment. Now, a lot of people are confused about this show. They're like, how does a kid, Ryder, have access to all this high-tech equipment, and how come he's basically running this town, and where are his parents, okay? Well, that's where this theory or legend comes into play. Theory goes that Paw Patrol is really a massive CIA experiment, one in which they successfully managed to create super soldier dogs. Now, let me explain. The CIA has been operating on a number of dogs for years. Finally, they had a successful batch of mutated pups. The experiments allowed them to become intelligent beings and enabled them to speak English. In fact, we can't really call them pups because they were genetically engineered and grown in a CIA lab. The experiment was called Operation Soldier Paw. The end goal was to create dogs that would become soldiers that are 100% loyal to their commands. The theory continued on, saying that Adventure Bay is actually a CIA site designed to train, test, and observe the pups' behaviors. Eventually, they will be turned into the government's slaves, doing anything that they wish. In our 7th spot, we have the brainwashing. Since 2014, Paw Patrol has earned $8 billion in global retail sales. That's not including what they make off of their episodes. Now, there's a theory out there as to why the show is so successful, and that's because it's
Use Kayak's filters to find hotels that have the free stuff you want. Download the Kayak app now.
Brainwashing kids. Here's a perfect example submitted by a mother whose son is obsessed with Paw Patrol. So she claims that her son will only eat Paw Patrol cheese strings. To him, he says it tastes way better than other cheese strings. So to trick him, she bought no-name cheese strings and then just slapped on a Paw Patrol sticker. And her son willingly ate it and said that it was delicious. But previously, he had eaten the no-name cheese string and said that it tasted bad. But as soon as he knows that it's Paw Patrol cheese string, it's better to him. If that's not some weird brainwashing, then I don't know what is. All these kids are being trained so that their life revolves around Paw Patrol toys, videos, and food. They're becoming consumerists at a young age and they don't even know it. In our 6th spot today, we have the AI simulations. Here's another wild theory that someone came up with for the show. Not me, guys. I don't come up with these theories, okay? Some believe that the reason why the pups can talk on the show is because they're living in an AI simulation. So nothing is real. The human characters are real, but the pups aren't. And the situations they put themselves in aren't real as well. It's just all made up. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the hidden agenda. A number of parents have argued that Paw Patrol has a hidden agenda. They are promoting an authoritarian type state. In the show, the leader of Paw Patrol is a male police dog named Chase. Chase is subservient to his boss, Ryder, and authoritarian towards the other pups. On top of that, everyone behaves and does as they're told. Not only that, but Chase's only qualification is that he's a police dog, and that's what gave him authority. So it makes it seem like the show is trying to tell kids that police are the main authority figures in society and should not be questioned. You do as they tell you to do, and you never question their actions. So Paw Patrol is a way to try and get kids to grow up bowing down to police, to try to avoid outbursts towards the police. In our 4th spot today, we have the gender stereotypes. So not only is Paw Patrol promoting authoritarianism, but it also promotes gender stereotypes. This can be seen clear as day with Skye. Skye is depicted way different than the other pups. Her uniform is hot pink and it's smaller than the others, and her eyes are pink as well, and she's got long eyelashes. During the first season of the show, only 1 of the 7 Paw Patrol team members was female, emphasizing that women can't have a helping role in society. As we know, workers, firefighters, and police are typically male-dominated jobs, and people argue that shows like this aren't helping this cause. Furthermore, someone pointed out that in season 2, another female pup gets added to the cast. Her name is Everett, and she's physically bigger, and her costume is gender neutral. However, she only appears in half of the episodes and does not live with the rest of the Paw Patrol pups. This sends the message that in order to be accepted into the workplace, a woman must take on a more traditional female appearance. So this is why people think that the show is damaging for kids to watch. In our 3rd spot today, we have the predictive programming. Now, I've talked about this briefly in another video before, but basically, predictive programming is a theory that the government or people of power are using movies, shows, even books to prepare us for the future, so that when an event happens in the future, we're desensitized to it because we've seen it before in the media years before it actually happened. Here's an example. In season 2 of Paw Patrol, which was released in 2014, Chase transitions into an intelligence officer. He's got all these spy gadgets like surveillance drones that he uses to track other characters. Well, only a year after season 2 was released, Edward Snowden exposed how the government was spying on citizens in the US. Not only that, but around 350 police departments across the country have purchased drones for surveillance purposes. So legend goes that these episodes and Chase's career change was done on purpose, for if the government was exposed, people weren't as shocked. In our 2nd spot, we have the predictive programming part 2. Here's another potential example of Paw Patrol using predictive programming. In 2014, the same year that Paw Patrol decided to give Chase a drone, the Obama administration used drones to kill 1,147 people. Children are being raised to believe that the use of drones is a normal part of society, and using them to kill people is okay. Chase uses them, so it's okay for the government to use them as well. And in our number 1 spot today, we have Ryder is dead. Legend goes that Ryder may be dead, and everything that is happening in the show, he's just making up. So someone on Reddit created this theory. Apparently, Ryder passed away from a sickness during his childhood. Maybe he wasn't able to do much as a kid because he was sick. So now he's in a better place where he can go on the adventures he never had when alive. Additionally, He loves dogs. I mean, who doesn't? So in heaven, he is constantly surrounded by dogs. This also explains why there is an insane amount of money invested in the equipment that they're seen using. Other people believe that he isn't dead, but he's just in a coma and he's dreaming about all this. Starting off this countdown, we have the lawsuit. Back in 2014, an Italian woman named Gabriella Capra actually sued Peppa Pig, demanding 100,000 euros. Why? Well, take a look at her last name, Gabriella Capra. Her last name translates to goat. In one episode, Peppa's family visits Italy and meets a character named Gabriella Goat. As a result, this Italian businesswoman has been constantly teased and made fun of for her name. Now, I don't know the outcome of this lawsuit, but she was pretty adamant on receiving some sort of compensation for the suffering she endured. Making our way down the list at number 9, we have the Peppa effect. So I mentioned this in my other video, but oh my, kids are going oinkers for Peppa. And I mean quite literally. Parents have reported that their kids are copying Peppa's mannerisms. They called this the Peppa effect. Basically, kids were talking with slight British accents and were even making snorting noises. But not only that, they were also copying her disrespectful behavior as well. Parents reported saying that their kids were being more defiant and having bad attitudes after watching the show. A research study also proved that this show was making kids lose their capability of developing empathy. So yeah, kids were literally turning into Peppa. In our 8th spot, we have the unrealistic expectations. What not a lot of fans know is that the team behind Peppa Pig was actually in a dispute with the UK National Health Service. They claimed that the show's medic, Dr. Brown Bear, was sending mixed messages to families. They argued that it set unrealistic expectations for doctors. In the show, Dr. Brown Bear makes house visits for minor sicknesses and prescribes medicine for every little thing. In fact, in one episode, he makes an urgent home visit when George has a facial rash. Then the doctor gives him medicine to help. They say that in reality, a rash would most likely clear up on its own. So now they're concerned that it's sending the wrong message to parents, who will then be disappointed if they don't receive the same treatment. Moving on at number 7, we have the stereotypes. Mothers are particularly concerned that Peppa Pig is negatively stereotyping females. In the show, Peppa is super girly. She wears a red dress and loves dolls, which isn't a problem. What's problematic is the fact that she refuses to do boy stuff, as she claims. They believe that the show is enforcing gender roles. They have an emphasis on what boys can do versus what girls can do. They are scared that the show is reinforcing the stereotypes that we're working hard to get rid of, and that the show is disempowering women. Making our way down the list at number 6, we have the cocaine problem. Peppa Pig World is a huge amusement park attraction filled with fun games, rides, and even cocaine. Yeah, you heard me correctly. At Peppa Pig World, large amounts of cocaine were found. This park attracts about 1 million visitors per year, thousands of the visitors being little kids. It's said that people were doing this drug in the baby changing areas as well as the bathrooms. In fact, traces of the drug were found in 4 out of the 7 bathrooms, meaning it was being used all over the park. An investigation was conducted after a Peppa Pig lunchbox was packed with this substance. Police went through the park using a wipe that will turn blue if it comes in contact with this drug. The bathrooms tested positive, which is sad. The attraction is filled with little kids who could potentially come in contact with this substance. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the bad role model. Parents everywhere are appalled at Peppa's bad behavior and ban their kids from watching the show. They believe that Peppa is a terrible role model for their children. Well, let's look at some of the reasons why this might be. For starters, Peppa is rude to her friends and is very disrespectful towards her parents. She often insults her dad, making fun of him for his old age and for being overweight. She also bullies around her little brother. And of course, she's famous for her sassy, snarky comments. Not only that, but the show promotes other unhealthy habits, like how George hates vegetables but loves chocolate cake, and he will often throw a fit when he doesn't get his way. In our 4th spot, we have the explicit toy. Back in 2015, a Peppa Pig educational toy was teaching children to swear. The toy was the Peppa Pig Fun and Learn tablet. It's used by children to help improve their speech. But in one case, it taught a 3-year-old boy named Amari Black to swear. After playing with the toy, he was saying words like thank you, please, and F you. The toy was said to have malfunctioned and was repeatedly saying that profanity over and over again. Amari's mother claims that he is saying it constantly, even after telling him that it's wrong and that he should stop. Moving on to number 3, we have the safety drama. Peppa the Pig was once a rebel with no care for her safety or the law. In early episodes, Peppa and her family were never seen wearing seatbelts in their car. It was setting a bad example for kids. One mother wrote to Nickelodeon to say that her daughter had refused to wear a seatbelt because she wanted to be like Peppa. As a result, those episodes have been reanimated, so they are now seen wearing their seatbelts. However, when Peppa is biking, she isn't seen wearing a helmet, which is another concern for parents. In our second spot, we have the fake episodes. Due to Peppa's popularity, a bunch of individuals have managed to give the show a more dark and disturbing twist. Multiple YouTube videos have been made to look like a typical Peppa Pig episode, but in reality, they are filled with horror. In one episode, Peppa Pig goes to the dentist and has her teeth ripped out. Then she ends up with an axe wedged in her head. There's another episode where Peppa just goes psycho and kills her whole family. What's scary is how parents were playing these videos for their kids thinking it was just a typical episode. Other people were slicing images of Momo into other Peppa episodes. The video would start as a typical Peppa the Pig episode, but halfway through, Momo would appear and would tell the child watching to do tasks like take pills, chug bleach, turn on the gas, or cut themselves open with a knife. In one case, a child did grab a knife and start cutting their hair. Thankfully, their parents stopped them before they did anything else. And in our number 1 spot, we have the banned episode. Now, there are multiple episodes of Peppa Pig that have been banned for various reasons. One of the more controversial ones was an episode called Mr. Skinny Legs. The episode was banned in Australia back in 2012. So in this episode, Daddy Pig is teaching Peppa not to be afraid of spiders, claiming that they're harmless. The spider, Mr. Skinny Legs, ends up being Peppa's friend. She tucks him into bed and offers him a tea. But a mother complained about this episode, saying it's giving kids in Australia the wrong message. So I'm sure we all know that Australia is filled with scary insects. In fact, they are known to have quite a bit of scary spiders, including the Australian tarantula that has been seen eating birds and are poisonous enough to kill dogs. The Australian redback spider, whose bites can cause serious illnesses and has even caused deaths. And the Sydney funnelweb spider. Their fangs are larger than Australian brown snakes. In fact, their fangs are strong enough that they can pierce through toenails and fingernails. Their venom is so powerful that it can attack the human nervous system and can mess with our vital organs. So parents were concerned that this episode would cause children to let their guard down around these spiders, which in turn could harm them. Starting off this countdown, we have Thomas W. Lawson. Thomas W. Lawson was a British stockbroker who in 1907 published a book called Friday the 13th. The story was about a stockbroker who tried to make the entire stock market crash on Friday the 13th, hence the name of the book. Little did he know that he would eerily predict the future. On Friday, December 13th of 1907, a ship named Thomas W. Lawson, named after a completely different Thomas W. Lawson, not the author, set sail on her first transatlantic voyage. That day, she sank. Isn't that bizarre? A ship named Thomas W. Lawson crashed and sunk on Friday the 13th. I'm telling you, this guy predicted the future whether he meant to or not. Moving on to number 9, we have the start and end of America's Civil War. In July of 1861, Wilmer McLean's Virginia home was involved in the first battle of Bull Run. In fact, the general of the battle wrote a diary entry about a cannonball crashing through McLean's kitchen. He wrote, and I quote, "A federal shell fell into the fireplace of my headquarters at the McLean house." Now, due to safety reasons, McLean moved his family home from the front lines to a new home in Appomattox County. Well, guess what? The battle ended up ending in his parlor in 1865. So it started in his backyard and ended in his parlor. So he was involved in the beginning and the end. Moving on to number 8, we have the birth chart. This story was shared by Raina Lee R on Reddit. So according to her, her brother's doctor would always get his chart mixed up at the office. And that's because there was another kid under his care with the same first and last name. To make things weirder, they were both born on the same day, just different months of the same year. And their mothers had the same name. What are the odds of that? I'll be saying that a lot in this video, so get used to it. But for someone to have the same first and last name as you, it's absolutely wild. And the same doctor. I just hope that they met and became best friends. Coming in at number 7, we have the Marks. This story was shared by Pata95 Nishta on Reddit. And this story is about to blow your mind. So according to her, her best friend from elementary school has 3 sisters. All 3 sisters grew up to marry engineers. Not only that, but all of their husbands were named Mark. And her best friend, I guess, followed this tradition because when she got older, she also married an engineer named Mark. What are the odds that all husbands' names were Mark and all of them are engineers? This is wild to me. Like, did the sisters do that on purpose? Are all engineers just named Mark? Also, that must be so confusing at family get-togethers and dinners. In our 6th spot, we have the meteor. So it said that the odds of being hit by a meteor is 1 in 840 million. So the odds of this happening are very, very, very slim. It's next to impossible. Well, the impossible happened to a family in France. One night they were hit by a meteor which had been flying through space for more than 4.5 billion years without hitting a target. Then all of a sudden it just crashed into their home. Thankfully, no one was hurt. The odd part here is that the family's last name was Comet. So, out of all families and homes to hit, it hit the family with the name Comet. That is truly bizarre. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Anthony Hopkins. In the early 1970s, Anthony Hopkins was casted to play Koista in The Girl from Petrovka. This film was based on the book of the same name. Now, to prepare for the role, he was going to read the book. However, he was unable to find any copy of the book in any bookstore. He searched all over the place, but to no avail. Then, randomly one day, as he was sitting in the London tube station, he found a copy of that book just laying around. Not only that, but when he opened the book, he found that it was signed by its author. Literally, the universe brought him what he was looking for. What are the odds of someone leaving that book behind and then Anthony finding it? The very book he was desperately looking for.
Your fall adventure starts in Goshen at Zareski Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Right now, during Jeep Adventure Days, lease a new 23 Jeep Compass for just $389 a month, or save 10% off MSRP. Or lease a new 24 Jeep Wrangler Willys 4xE for only $379 a month. And at Zareski, we make it easy because we'll deliver right to your door. Zareski Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Over 107 years as your hometown dealership. Search Zareski.
Coming in at number 4, we have the close calls. In 2014, Dutch cyclist Martin de Jong had plans to head from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur. He was scheduled to be on Malaysia Airlines Flight 17. But before his flight, he bumped his ticket up to catch a later flight because it was cheaper. That is the airline that was shot down while flying over eastern Ukraine. All passengers lost their lives. That's not all. In March, he had a flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. Again, he decided to bump his ticket up at the last minute to get a cheaper deal. And it's a good thing that he did. He was scheduled to be on Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, the one that disappeared, never to be seen again. So Martin escaped death twice, all because he wanted a better deal and save some money. He's a lucky, lucky man, but also unlucky that he was supposed to be on both of those flights. In our third spot, we have the plum pudding. Mathematician Joseph Mazur shared this creepy coincidence involving French poet Émile Deschamps with plum pudding in his book Fluke. So back in the day, a man named Emile was first introduced to plum pudding by a man named Mr. de Forgebus. From that moment on, every time he had plum pudding, he would encounter Mr. de Forgebus, and I hope I'm saying his name right. The second time he had plum pudding, he was at a restaurant and ordered it, but the waiter was like, "Sorry, we just sold the last pudding to this man," and points to the back of the restaurant. Lo and behold, it was Mr. de Forgebus. A decade later, he went to a dinner party, and at the party, they were serving plum pudding. Emile made a joke like, "Who's this party for, Mr. de Forgebus?" And at that very moment, he walked through the door. But he wasn't even supposed to be at that party. He had accidentally come to the wrong door on his way to another dinner party. So what are the odds that every time that this man had plum pudding, Mr. de Forgebus was there? It's kind of like Beetlejuice, you know, you say his name 3 times and he'll appear, except in this case, you have plum pudding and he'll appear. Moving on to number 2, we have Flight 666. Now this one gives me the absolute creeps. On Friday the 13th, Flight 666 departed from Copenhagen and landed in Helsinki, aka H-E-L, hell. Let me say that again for you. Flight 666 flew to hell on Friday the 13th. I don't know about you, but if I was scheduled on that flight, I would cancel immediately. I ain't taking no chances. But thankfully, the flight landed safely in Helsinki. Thank gosh it did, because that seems like one cursed flight. It's plain creepy how it lined up exactly like that. Pun intended. Get it? Plain creepy. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the prediction of James Dean's death. On September 30th, 1955, James Dean died in a car accident. He was only 24 years old. And it seems like a man named Alec Guinness actually predicted this would happen. He warned Dean and said, and I quote, "If you get in that car, you will be found dead in it by this time next week." A week later, Dean was involved in a terrible car accident and he sadly lost his life. In fact, Alec had said that the car was sinister, and I think he's right. Later, parts of the car were recovered and resold and placed into other cars. All the car owners who had parts of James Dean's car were also involved in deadly crashes. Not only that, but the mechanic working on the car died after the car rolled off the back of a truck and crushed the legs of the mechanic. So Alec was onto something here and tried to warn Dean. Starting off this countdown, we have the married couple's parents. This story surrounds a couple named Stephen and Helen Lee. A couple of years ago, the pair got engaged when they learned something very freaky about their families. While going through family photos during their engagement party, they found photos of their parents together. Turns out that Stephen's father and Helen's mom had actually dated and were set to get married in Korea in the 1960s. But their parents' disapproved, so they didn't. Had they not disapproved, the couple would have never been born. Not only that, but what are the odds that they got together after their parents had already gotten together? Kinda awkward if you ask me. Moving on at number 9, we have the church fire. On March 1st of 1950 at 7:25 p.m., a church exploded in Beatrice, Nebraska. At 7:20, a choir practice had begun, except none of the 15 choir members were there. And it's lucky that they weren't, or else they would have perished in the fire. Turns out that all 15 members arrived late due to personal reasons. So they were nowhere near the church when it exploded. What are the odds that all 15 members were running late? This story could have ended in tragedy. Thankfully, it didn't. Moving on to number 8, we have the wedding vows. In 2007, Fred and Lynette Dubendorf were walking along a beach clearing up some litter when they found a message in a bottle. After they opened it, they found it contained the marriage vows of another couple. Upon closer inspection, they found that their marriage dates matched. The couple who created the vows in the bottle were married on August 18th of that year. The Dubendorfs were married August 18th of 1979. Both couples were also married on beaches. The Dubendorfs were in complete shock and actually reached out to the other couple. Thankfully, the couple left their address in the bottle. Both couples now believe that their marriages were meant to be, especially Matt and Melody, the couple that wrote the vows in a bottle, who had several failed marriages before finding each other. They were skeptical about getting married again, but this to them is a sign that it was meant to be. Moving on to number 7, we have Edgar Allan Poe. This is one of the freakiest coincidences I have have ever read about. So in 1838, Edgar Allan Poe wrote his only complete novel. It was called The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket. The book was about Arthur Pym, who goes on a nautical adventure. He hops on a boat as a stowaway and hides out there. But while aboard the ship, a mutiny occurs and a number of crew members lose their life. There's only 4 members aboard the ship now. One of the men was named Richard Parker. They kept him alive to help them control the ship. However, they encountered a terrible storm and things went south. The remaining 4 people on board are struggling to find food. So Richard was like, let's draw straws. Whoever gets the shortest straw will be killed and the others can eat them. So they did as Richard said, and he ended up drawing the shortest straw and then was eaten by his crew members. Believe it or not, but 46 years after that book was published, this happened in real life. In May of 1884, 4 men were traveling from England to Australia when they found themselves fighting for their lives. The men decided to draw straws and see who they should eat. The cabin boy drew the smallest straw. What was the cabin boy's name? Richard Parker. The same name as the guy who got eaten in the book. What are the odds of that? Is Edgar Allan Poe a psychic, or did he write history, or both? Moving on to number 6, we have Redbox. This story comes from Matinee25 on Reddit. A couple of years ago, her and her friend went to Redbox to see if they could rent the movie Tron. For those of you who don't know what Redbox is, basically it's an American video rental company that has these little kiosks you can go to and pick what movie you want, and then you can rent it and you'll get the DVD. So they went there, but they found out that they didn't have Tron. So they were like, okay, screw it, let's just rent another movie. Well, when they opened up the DVD case, turns out that inside was the movie Tron. Someone had put it back in the wrong case. But what are the odds? Because that's the movie that they wanted to see in the first place. Like, out of all the DVDs they could have gotten, they got the one with the switched disc. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the lucky numbers. So this story comes from Yamaletf on Reddit. According to them, they were working as a call center operator when they asked the caller for her birthday.
So we went to this place called Bucks County for vacation. There was so much to do. We played games, rode on a train, and visited Kids Castle. I went on rides, water slides, and got to hang with Elmo at Sesame Place. We hiked to this huge boulder field called Ringing Rocks. Oh, and I got to meet a pilot. That was so cool. You gotta go.
The caller said it was April 20th, which was the same birthday as the operator. When the next caller rang in, their birthday was April 27th, which was the same birthday as the operator's brothers. So at this point, the operator was like, okay, what is going on? And then the caller told her that maybe it's a sign and that she should go play the lottery with those dates. And that night, she went to the grocery store, played with those numbers, and ended up winning. It was only $380, but still, that's better than nothing. What are the odds that the winning numbers correlated to the caller's birthdays? In our 4th spot, we have the birthdays. According to a woman named Carrie Lee Simmons, her and her best friend share a number of eerie similarities. First, they both have the same birthdays. Not only that, but turns out that they were born in the same hospital, and their mothers shared the same recovery room. Keep in mind that their mothers were complete strangers. Then, 17 years later, the two connected and became best friends. When they found out that they were practically born beside each other, they completely freaked out. That's how you know that friendship is meant to be. In our 3rd spot, we have the sign. This next story is from Reddit user EricFP23. So the day in which her grandfather died, her mother had been sitting in bed next to him, comforting him. Before he passed, she whispered to him, "Tell Richie I say hi." Richie was her ex-husband who had passed away a couple years earlier. A couple of days after her grandfather's passing, Erica and her mom were at Walgreens when all of a sudden a huge truck drove by with some writing written on the side of it. It read, "Richie says hi." I am speechless. Like, that's just goosebumps. And Erica and her mom were speechless too. It's either just a super eerie coincidence or Richie sent that message from the grave. Moving on to number 2, we have the taxi driver. I'm sorry, but this one is a little depressing compared to the other stories on today's list. In 1974, a man was riding his moped scooter in Bermuda when he was struck and killed by a taxi. 1 year later, his twin brother was riding the exact same scooter when he was struck and killed by a taxi as well. The taxi was driven by the exact same driver who took his brother's life. So not only did the twins die the exact same way, but they had been killed by the exact same person. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the life savior. When Su Weifang of China was 50 years old, he was outside near a river by his home when he saw a boy drowning. So he jumped in and saved his life. 30 years later, he rescued another boy from the river. This boy had slipped and fell into the river and didn't know how to swim. Once again, Weifang jumped in and saved this boy's life. Well, turns out that the 2 people he saved were related. They were father and son. 30 years ago, he saved the boy's father from drowning. Then, he saved the father's son from drowning in the same river. So they believe that this man is their guardian angel. Alright guys, that's all for today's video. Which one of these coincidences creeped you out the most? They're all pretty eerie in their own way, if you ask me. Starting off this countdown, we have Jean-Marie Dubarry. On February 13th, 1746, a French man named Jean-Marie was executed for the murder of his father. Hundreds of years later, on the exact same day, a man named Jean-Marie Dubarry was also sentenced to death. He had also taken the life of his father. So what are the odds that 2 unrelated people with the same name both killed their fathers and then got executed on the same day? Like, that is just way too freaky. In our 9th spot, we have the dollar bill. Now, this is a pretty wholesome one for you all. When a woman named Esther was young, she had written her name on a couple of dollar bills after a bad breakup. She then told herself that she was going to marry the man that brought the bill back to her. Well, years later, she was dating a man named Paul Gratchen. The day he asked Esther to be his girlfriend, they were at a sandwich shop. As he was paying for the meal, he got handed a dollar bill with the name Esther written on it. The bill she wrote years prior. And in the end, they ended up getting married. Now, how wholesome is that? The universe literally gave her what she had manifested. Coming in at number 8, we have the girls with the red balloon. In 2001, a 10-year-old girl named Laura Buxton decided to release a red balloon from her front yard with a message on it. The balloon said, "Please return to Laura Buxton," and it had her address written on it. Well, this balloon traveled 140 miles and ended up landing on the yard of another 10-year-old girl's house. This girl's name was also Laura Buxton. Like, what are the odds? The 2 Laura Buxtons ended up meeting and they discovered that they had tons of similarities, not just their age and name. For example, they both had a guinea pig, a gray rabbit, and a 3-year-old chocolate lab. They both also looked alike and dressed alike. I'm telling you, this is just way too freaky. Like, what are the odds? I'm gonna be saying that a lot in this video. What are the odds? Moving on to number 7, we have Mark Twain and Halley's Comet. Every 76 years, Halley's Comet is visible to the naked eye as it soars past Earth. Well, American writer Mark Twain was born on one of Halley's Comets passing in 1835. The next year that the comet was said to pass was in 1910, and Mark Twain predicted that he was going to die that year. He said that he came into the world with the comet and that he was going to leave the world with the comet as well. And Mark Twain was right. Mark Twain passed one day after the comet's closest approach in 1910. So not only did Mark Twain predict his own death, but his birth and death both seamlessly lined up with Halley's Comet. How freaky. In our 6th spot, we have Violet Jessup. Violet Jessup has been named the luckiest woman as well as the unluckiest woman. She also has been given the name Miss Unsinkable, and I'll explain how she got those nicknames in just a second. So Violet was a stewardess and nurse who was on board 3 big sister ships when disaster struck each of them. It started with the HMS Olympic. She was on board the ship when it collided with the HMS Hawk. Then she was on the HMHS Britannic when it struck a mine at sea. And lastly, she was on board the Titanic, and she managed to escape all 3 of these disasters. At this point, she probably was cursed, and after the first accident, she shouldn't have gotten back on any ships ever again. So that's why she's been given the name the luckiest, unluckiest woman to live. She's been lucky to survive all the accidents, but unlucky that they kept happening to her. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with Daniel du Toit. The irony behind this next story is mind-blowing. So Daniel du Toit was a South African astronomer. Over his life, he discovered and co-discovered several comets. He also spent his days giving lectures. On September 28th, 1981, he gave a lecture on how death can strike anyone at any time. As soon as the lecture was done, he popped a mint into his mouth. The mint then slid to the back of his throat, he choked on it, and died right then and there. So yeah, I'd say his lecture was pretty spot on. In our fourth spot today, we have Harry Zigland. Now, this story is kind of controversial. Some say it's an old wives' tale. Others say that it actually did happen. Now, if it did happen, then this is the definition of karma. So back in the day, there was a man named Harry Zigland who broke a woman's heart. She was so heartbroken that she took her own life. Her brother was so devastated and angry at Harry that he vowed to get revenge on him. So he went out to find Harry with his gun and shot at him. Harry fell to the floor, and the brother, thinking that he had succeeded in killing him, grabbed his gun and took his own life. But Harry survived. The bullet didn't strike him. Instead, it hit and got lodged into a nearby tree. 3 years later, Henry was using dynamite to remove the tree. When he blew it up, the explosion sent the bullet out of the tree, and it hit and instantly killed him. It took karma 3 years, but it finally caught up to him. Coming in at number 3, we have the Hoover Dam. Over the course of the construction of the Hoover Dam, there were 96 deaths. The first death was of a man named J.G. or George Turney. It occurred on December 20th, 1922. He sadly lost his life after drowning in the dam. 14 years later, on the exact anniversary of this guy's death, his son, Patrick Turney, lost his life. He fell from an electrical tower and died. This was also the final death reported during the construction of the dam, meaning the first man to die and the last man were father and son, and it happened on the exact same day. Coming in at number 2, we have Jack Frost and Other Stories. Some things are just meant to be, and you'll believe this once you hear this next story. Children's book author Anne Parrish was with her husband in Paris when they stopped by an antique bookshop from the 1920s. While in there, she found a copy of Jack Frost and Other Stories. She told her husband that that was her favorite book as a child. Well, when he opened the book, it had her name written inside of it. It read Anne Parrish, 209N Weber Street, Colorado Springs. So not only did it have Anne's name in the book, but it had the place she grew up in, Colorado Springs. Seems like Anne was meant to find that book.
Elise, now that we've made travel so expensive, this golf course is all ours? How'd you get here?
Kayak. They compared hundreds of travel sites to find a great deal on my flight, car, and hotel.
Kayak. Search one and done.
And in our number 1 spot today, we have the 2 presidents. Turns out that Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy share a lot of eerie coincidences. Besides the fact that they both were American presidents, they both were killed by a gunshot wound to the back of the head. They both passed away on a Friday. They both died before a celebration. Kennedy was assassinated on the eve of Thanksgiving. Lincoln died right before Easter. And each were accompanied by their wife and another couple when they were killed. But that's not all. They both had best friends named Billy Graham. Both Billies had 4 children, and they both had secretaries named after the other president. Kennedy's secretary was Miss Lincoln. Lincoln's secretary was John. But wait, there's even more. Both of their successors were vice presidents called Johnson. The freakiest coincidence, Lincoln was shot in Ford's theater. Kennedy was shot in a Lincoln made by Ford. Whoa, boom, mic drop. Isn't that insane? I thought so. It blew my mind.
Number 10, twins named Jim. Okay, we'll kick this part 2 off on a lighter note. This one gets a little dark, so we'll ease our way in, you know? The twins named Jim. Okay, that sounds like a 2026 comedy hit already. Back in 1979, a set of twins were reunited when they were 39 years old at the time. This was, of course, a big moment in their lives. For 37 years, they barely knew of each other's existence. Then when they finally met, the long-lost twins had more in common than they could have ever thought. For starters, both had been named Jim. I spoiled that in the fun title earlier, but their adoptive parents both named the lads Jim. That's insane. Jim? Like of all names, really? And both Jims just happened to love math and carpentry. Both also had jobs and security, and both also had ex-wives named Linda. And they both since married a woman named Betty. This isn't like, what? Imagine meeting another you, and he's like, oh yeah, I also love knitting and Autobots. What are the odds? No, that's too eerie. You're an alien clone. Something's afoot here. Get out of here. Not just meeting a long-lost twin at 40. No way. Number 9, Stephen Hawking. Time is relative and fascinating, and all that confusing stuff. There's so many components of our universe that we still don't even understand. James Webb is out here making people turn to atheists all of a sudden. The universe is bigger than we all think, yet somehow it still gives us these once-in-a-lifetime coincidences. Or as I say, coincidence. Stephen Hawking's death occurred on Einstein's 139th birthday, which is also Galileo's 300th death day, and also Pi Day. This was March 14th. My dad has the same birthday as Daniel Radcliffe, and they're both wizards, so I don't know. Just saying. These birthday coincidences are getting out of hand. Coincidences. There it is, he's got it. Number 8, atomic survivor. On August 6th and 9th, 1945, the United States detonated 2 nuclear explosives over the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This, of course, was devastating. The results in this reaction, the blast and the radiation they both caused, took the lives of nearly 90,000 people. It was horrible. But in 2009, the Japanese government confirms that there was at least one man who was in each city on both days of the reactions, and he lived to tell the tale. On August 6th, Satomu Yamaguchi was in Hiroshima on a business trip. As I was walking alone, I heard the sound of a plane. Just one, he told a British newspaper. I looked up into the sky and I saw the B-29 and it dropped 2 parachutes. I was looking up into the sky at them and suddenly it was like a flash of magnesium, a great flash in the sky, and I was blown over just like that. And by August 9th, he had returned home to Nagasaki only to experience the trauma for a second time. Despite the double radiation exposure, Yamaguchi lived to be 93 years old, which is incredible. He sadly passed away from stomach cancer. Number 7, Julianne Kopka. Miss Julianne has a 2-for-1 when it comes to survival stories. I had to include it. Her story starts out on Christmas Eve, a lovely day, 1971, when she was just a teenager and she was on Lanza Flight 508. Now the plane was struck by lightning, which is an actual nightmare situation that I didn't know could happen, and this led to the plane starting to disintegrate midair. It was all bad. In what felt like the blink of an eye for Julianne, she found herself still strapped to her seat 2 miles above the Peruvian rainforest. She was injured, of course, full of bruises, a broken collarbone, but she was alive after she landed. And in fact, she was the only person who had been on the flight that was still alive. Just fell out of a plane and lived to tell. That is crazy. That is bat insane. But it's like you're out of the fire into the frying pan at this point, right? Now you're in the wilderness all alone with no food, just, a little bit of candy, if anything, from the plane. Julianne had found a small stream which she began to wade in downstream. She traveled along it, and the insects in the jungle were eating her alive, and sorry, this next part is gross, but maggots had infected her arm. It was like bad, worse, even worse. Now we're flowing down a river and maggots are eating me. This is incredible. Julianne ended up coming across a sort of encampment where she found a few supplies, and she was so smart and was able to give herself a little bit of first aid, which included pouring gasoline on the infected arm, which then led to all the, disgusting bugs and maggots leaving it. Because they're like, hey, I'm not a fan of gasoline. Lunch is over. See you later. And then just a few hours later, a few lumber workers found her, and they gave her more first aid treatment and took her to an area that was more populated, where she was then airlifted for medical treatment. Now, in 2000, her story was told through the documentary titled Wings of Hope, which was directed by Werner Herzog, who particularly took interest in the story because, 1, it's obviously incredible. As I was just explaining it, I read this and I'm like, it's crazy. But 2, Werner Herzog also had a seat booked on that flight, and he would have been on that same flight if it wasn't for a last-minute change of plans. I can't even, that should be number 1, really. Number 6, Comet family. Okay, this one's good. The odds of being hit or killed by a meteor are 1 in 2 million, or something like that, right? It's crazy. But even so, back in 1954, residents in Talladega County, Alabama, noticed a ball of fire heading towards the Earth. Now, back then we didn't have Twitter, right? We couldn't warn anybody that a meteor was possibly gonna hit us. We also really didn't know if it was gonna hit or not, or how big it was, so it was alarming. Especially for Anne Elizabeth Hodges, who got hit by said space rock. Yeah, she only got grazed, but with these odds, it's still possible. Wild. Now, cut to recent history, the Comet family in France. Their house was hit by a meteor. I'll say that again. The Comet family was hit by a... You get it, there we go. As somebody with the last name McWaters, I'm a little worried that I might drown now. I don't know. Last names seem to be a little bit of a tip-off, it seems. And number 5, World Cup. An episode from The Simpsons back in 1997 called The Cartridge Family shows Mexico and Portugal going head-to-head in football. Like, like soccer football, not like, football. You get it. Springfield residents are told to go see this match to determine which nation is the greatest on Earth, Mexico or Portugal. So when the 2018 World Cup then rolled around much later, pun intended, fans were excited that this was now coming true, but at the same time had a laugh determining that Ronaldo must have missed that penalty intentionally so that the prediction would come true. That's like the theory now, that Ronaldo missed to make The Simpsons correct. A lot of theories for that one, it's always fun. But recently it's been announced that Qatar will host a tournament in November and December 2022 rather than usual June-July dates. Another World Cup, another chance for The Simpsons to add another prediction to their already impressive list. That's a creepy show. I have another Simpsons one coming up, but we'll see. Number 4, Mars Life. We're back. There it is. There's the next Simpson one. That fast. There we go. Let me ask you lovely people a question. If you could go to Mars right now with like 3 of your friends, would you do it? Keep in mind it's really boring, and unless you're a astronaut botanist like Matt Damon, you'll probably have a rough go. But in the future, would you do it? I would. I'd go. I'd go with like one person, you know? Force too many, that's too much. Going to Mars might be as simple as going to the mall. Apparently, The Simpsons have an episode where they show a family visit to the big red planet come 2051. But honestly, I feel like we're gonna get there a lot sooner. SpaceX is already planning to send people out there. It's a quick, 9-month trip, so make sure your phone's charged. But it's actually more beneficial for the team to travel during these peak times in the 2030s and in the 2050s. Because during these years, trips to the planet will be shorter and they'll coincide with periods of the solar maximum. So while this one may or may not come true in 2022, well, let me tell you, it's right around the corner, or maybe in 2050. Who knows? Number 3, Titanic inspection card. This inspection card once belonged to a woman named Marion Meanwell. And you're probably thinking, what could possibly be worrisome or, creepy about an inspection card? Well, it shows how Marion was not intended to be on the Titanic that fateful day, but by some turn of events, she unfortunately found herself as one of the passengers. The card shows that she was originally meant to be traveling on a ship called the Majestic, and for some reason the trip she originally had planned was delayed, and now she instead was assigned to the ill-fated Titanic. The eerie part is you can see the word Majestic was crossed out on her card, which then shows us the change in plans. If only people were able to see what was about to strike and they could have somehow warned her. That's the creepy thing about these coincidences. Sometimes they're just bad, You could fall out of a plane and have maggots all over you and survive, or you could go from one cursed ship to another. Number 2, Edgar Allan Poe. Okay, this is a story that actually convinced me that Edgar Allan Poe is for real a time traveler, so buckle up, grab a soda. Because 2 separate stories that he wrote both turned out to be exceptionally true and real, but not until after they'd been written. Yeah, it's a good one. Firstly, Poe's only completed novel was published in 1838, and it tells the tale of mutiny on a whaling ship lost at sea. These men on a ship realize that they're doomed and need to resort to extreme measures in order to stay alive. So they begin drawing straws to see who they're going to sacrifice to save food. A boy named Richard Parker drew the shortest straw and therefore became the next meal. Dark, let's move on. Let's fast forward to 46 years now to 1884, and in real life also, I might add. There are now 4 men who have been set adrift after the sinking of a yacht. These men found themselves in a similar predicament to the novels, and I kid you not, they ended up taking the same route and elected to sacrifice a cabin boy. A cabin boy also named Richard Parker. Odd, right? Okay. Cut to 1840, Poe penned the gruesome story The Businessman, in which the narrator suffers a traumatic head injury in his youth, and then later a violent life follows. The weird thing about this story is that Edgar Allan Poe fully understood, or so it seemed, frontal lobe injury. Now this was long before it was ever even studied or looked at, right? This type of study didn't arrive until 1848. An actual neurologist, Eric Altschuler, recently wrote how there's a dozen symptoms and he knew every single one. It's so exact and it's so weird, it's like he had a time machine. End quote. Yeah, it's almost like he had a time machine. Did he? And finally, number 1, Simpsons dome in real life. Yep, this one's gonna hit home. Let's do it. This one's gonna hit dome. That didn't work. For this one, we're looking at the Simpsons movie, which still holds up. That's a fun time. But even over the pandemic, I saw personal domes come to life, right? It was so weird. Restaurants were making these like weird tents on sidewalks just to stay in business. But an even bigger idea came long before this. Back in the 70s, there were talks about putting a dome over Manhattan, this massive dome over Midtown that regulates weather and pollution, all that good stuff. Now, if that had been built, imagine what we would have done with it during the initial breakout during this pandemic. It would have been madness. And then in 2010, later on, the city called Eco City 2020 was planned out. It was supposed to be built in Siberia. It was announced in 2014 officially, this climate controlled, domed city, 4.5 square kilometers, all that good stuff. But since 2016, the project lost the funding. What do you guys think? Should we bring back domes and just, have a little personal bubble everywhere we go? Just lose the umbrella and live in a big glass ball forever over our city? I'd do it. That'd be kind of nice. Be like living in a Coca-Cola mist zone your entire life. Just kind of like, ooh, this is nice. Kicking off the list at number 10, the Hoover Dam coincidence. We'll kick this list off on a grim note because why not? The Hoover Dam, okay, this massive accomplishment. Its first victim, sadly, was a man named J.G. Tierney. It was December 20th, 1922, and the official death toll from industrial accidents during the construction of the dam from 1921 to 1935 was sadly around the 200 number. It was a lot of deaths. It was pretty sad.
Ready to start eating healthier? Meet Kachava. Kachava is the world's healthiest all-in-one meal shake. A complete meal in seconds to keep you going for hours. It's made with over 70 plant-based superfoods and nutrients, giving you all your essentials in one delicious meal.
Cheers!
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, that's yummy.
Thank you. Just water, 2 scoops, blend and go. Putting you in control of your nutrition to improve your well-being, to fuel your body and mind. Only the highest quality plant-based ingredients. Made for health-conscious people on the go. It's a simple change in your daily routine to kickstart a healthier way of life. It's amazing what you can do when you eat healthy and feel your best. Join thousands of happy customers using Kachava to achieve their health goals. It all starts with changing what you put into your body. Click the link and start today.
Guys, do your daughter a favor this year by getting her a unique gift that she'll treasure forever. It says, "To my daughter, never forget that I love you forever. I hope that you believe in yourself as much as I believe in you. Whenever you feel overwhelmed, remember whose daughter you are and straighten your crown. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, smarter than you think, and loved more than you know. I can't promise to be here for the rest of your life, but I can promise to love you for the rest of mine. Love, Dad." This necklace is absolutely stunning. It's a really beautiful piece. The necklace is available in a luxury wooden mahogany style box that has an LED light at the top that shines down on the necklace and makes it sparkle. This beautiful message says it all. Supplies are very limited this year, so be sure to get one for your daughter today. Click shop now below.
The earliest and latest victims of the construction were both father and son. And if that's not coincidence enough, both of them died on the exact same day. They both passed on December 20th. J.G. Tierney sadly drowned while conducting surveys in the Colorado River, and then 13 years later, Patrick Tierney fell off an intake tower right before construction was complete. Grim start, but stay tuned, we have a lot more. Number 9, legendary musical neighbors. It's weird how similar some of your neighbors are, right? Like growing up, we had 3 Davids on our street. They all loved cutting their lawn at 7 a.m. What a coincidence, right? We all hated them. What a coincidence. Well, the 60s rock icon Jimi Hendrix and the 18th century composer George Friedrich Handel, they were both neighbors. A couple hundred years apart, but they were both neighbors indeed. They lived in 23 Brook Street and 25 Brook Street in London. What are the odds, right? Had George had been born 200 years later, we would have gotten the greatest collab of all time. Yeah, if you're local, of course you'll know there's a site there now. It's a famous landmark. But in terms of coincidences, there's music in the air on Brook Street. Something's going on. Kind of want to walk by and see if I'm better at playing the flute. Maybe I can play the flute on that block, who knows. Number 8, same taxi, different tragedy. Okay, here's a dark one, buckle up folks, pun intended. Back in 1975, a man was sadly hit by a taxi in Bermuda. Now he of course sadly did not make it, all the while a passenger in the taxi witnessed the entire horrible event. Now that's life-changing in itself, that's trauma, right? A year later though, the same driver was driving the same passenger when all of a sudden, the taxi hits another civilian. That civilian just happened to be the initial victim's brother. Ugh, horrible. This is some Final Destination stuff. I don't like it at all. Like this, what are the odds here, really? Let's move on to something a bit nicer, a bit. Number 7, same day, different vows. Okay, brightening up the mood a little bit, bringing us all back to happy land. CBC News reported this one. It's a little nicer of an ending. Fred and Lynette Dubendorf, husband and wife, they were taking a stroll down the beach with their dog, living up the life, right? The classic. When they noticed a message in a bottle had washed up on the shore. Now, personally, I wouldn't be too excited, right? I'd be a little concerned. I've seen Castaway, you know? This message could go one of two ways. I have no idea. Like, what's gonna be in here, right? Like, help, 1876, you're like, oh no. But they opened it, and inside they found wedding vows from another couple, Melody Kloska and Matt Bears. They had recently got married on a beach in Lake Michigan, and word spread rather quickly. Thing is, their wedding date was the same as the couple who found the message. That was the bizarre coincidence here. So they took it as a sign that both pairs were meant to be, and they sent a surprising letter to the lost couple's address. It's kind of nice, but it's also kind of creepy, you know? It'd be creepy on one hand. Hey, I found that message in a bottle